Welcome. I'm here at City Hall for election 2015 in the city of Pasadena. My name's Hoyt Hillsman. I'm here with Roberta Martinez. And we're going to have an exciting night tonight. We have a big election in Pasadena with mayoral candidates. We have 6 mayoral candidates who are vying for the job of mayor of city of Pasadena after 4 terms of Mayor Bill Bogaard, who will be retiring. We also have competitive races in District 1 and in several of our Pasadena Unified Board of Education races. So we're delighted to have you here. If you hear a little noise in the background, they've already started counting the absentee ballots. And apparently there's over 9,000 absentee ballots.
That's right.
It looks like a lot of people, maybe 60–70%, are actually voting absentee this year.
There's a lot of people now that are voting absentee ballots. Yes, my name is Roberta Martinez, and I'm a writer and a historian, and it's a pleasure to be here tonight and to share the evening with you and with Hoyt.
Well, thank you, Roberta. It's great to be here with you. I should introduce myself. I'm also a writer and journalist, and I'm a board member of the Pasadena Media Corporation, which handles all the public access stations for Pasadena, KPAS, and the others that you may have seen. You can also see us live streaming and archived on kpas.org. So if you miss any part of this, turn on your computer or your laptop or your mobile phone and you can check it out. But right now we're coming to you live and we're waiting for results which are going to be coming in around 8 o'clock. As I said, they're counting the absentee ballots now. There's a lot of buzz in the background. They have automated machines that are counting.
Yeah.
I'm, talking about absentee ballots, I'm old-fashioned. I like to go to the polls. I like to get a sticker like you got.
I have my little sticker from
I like to chat with the poll workers, but I think for other people, the convenience of absentee balloting is really great.
Well, I think a lot of people, when they're busy, they have their job they have to get to, right. They have their children, they have to get to school.
Absolutely.
Or maybe they're off on vacation, whatever it is. We have the luxury almost of doing absentee voting.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, the bad news is that the even with absentee ballots, we still can't seem to get the turnout out as great. Now, hopefully tonight we'll see over 20% turnout in Pasadena, which is better than LA.
Exciting. That would be exciting. It would be an exciting thing. I think I've been hearing a lot more discussion out in the community about what's going on.
Okay.
And one of the places that comes to mind is Facebook and Pasadena politics.
Right.
That has been sort of a popping area that's been going on, and they've had moderated and unmoderated pages that are going on. They invited all of the candidates to become friends with
right.
Pasadena politics and then just kind of share who they are, what their positions are, their vision and their mission as they're moving ahead.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of activity. I mean, there have been forums, candidate forums at the Baptist Church and elsewhere. There's been a lot of fundraising going on too. This is probably going to be one of the most expensive mayoral races that we've seen in Pasadena. So. We have candidates that have raised well into the 6 figures actually. And the great thing about our new electronic filing system is that the members of the public can go online and find out who gave what and how much they gave. And transparency.
Yeah. Well, the information has been there, but the challenge has often been finding the time so that they can get to go to City Hall, up to the city clerk to find the notebooks, and then finding which notebook is the right notebook to go to.
Yeah. You know, in terms of the candidates, one of the things that's interesting is that the absentee ballots went out 6 weeks ago. So in effect, the election started 6 weeks ago. So it's not the normal get out the vote on election day. You've got to be getting the vote out beginning, and I know you've run for office, and so have I. You know what that's like.
Yeah.
You have to be out there knocking on doors, getting the lawn signs out, sending out the mailers. Beginning 6 weeks ago. So it's gotten a lot more intensive, hasn't it?
It has. Although there are the 3 council races that are existing in Districts 2, 4, and 6,
right.
Margaret McCostin and Jean Masuda and Steve Madison, that haven't really had to do a lot of campaigning because they're unopposed.
Unopposed.
And then for PUSD, though, on the other hand, you have District 2 that has Evan Dagger, who dropped out shortly after he pulled his papers,
okay.
Roy Bulgurjian, and Marcela Rojas. And then for District 4, you have Cheryl Turner, Patrick Cahalan, and in District 6, Sandra Saraganian and Lawrence Torres.
Well, it's a good field, and it's, I've met a number of these candidates for the PUSD, and they're all bright, been involved in the district for a long time. Maybe, Roberta, you could talk a little bit about why the board is so important for our community.
Oh my goodness. Well, the Board of Education is so important because they are helping to decide the future of our children in our community.
Absolutely.
Even though we have a lot of children that are in private schools,
Right.
the workforce that's living here is hopefully the workforce that's going to be receiving a good education as they're moving ahead. And PUSD has become much stronger than it used to be.
Well, and after the Great Recession of 2008, the importance of job training, education has become so prominent in our world.
It is.
And I know that for part of the economic development plan for Pasadena is to improve our public schools so that we can create a highly educated, high-earning, literate population.
Well, there was a lot of
workforce.
there was a lot of activity from the community when they were busy trying to make sure that the city council would actually adopt an element that was focused on our public schools. And there was a lot of tension that existed. Some of the council members felt very, very strongly that this is a city entity and that's what they should be focused on. And others felt, well, this connection that exists with PUSD could be strengthened and would be in the long term a good idea for that strengthened relationship and the city.
Well, let's talk about the big race tonight, which is the mayoral race.
Yes.
We have 6 candidates for mayor of Pasadena, and it's a historic night because we're going to be hopefully finding a new mayor who will replace Bill Bogaard, who's had 4 terms, 16 years of service. Let me tell you who some of the candidates are. Alan Shea is a business owner. Don Morgan is another candidate who's a business owner and educator. Terry Tornak, some of you may know, is a District 7 council person. Bill Thompson, a former mayor himself, and a PCC trustee.
Board of Trustees, yes.
A lawyer. Jacque Robinson, who's the vice mayor.
Yep.
And Jason Hardin, who's a magazine publisher. So it's a great slate. It's tough for people to have to make a decision tonight.
Well, and one of the benefits that we have is that I believe we have Jason here who is ready to be interviewed. Is that what I'm understanding?
I see him
over there.
offset, and if we can, we could bring him in and we could talk to Jason for a few moments. Jason, welcome.
Hello, good evening.
How are you? Good to see you.
Thank you.
Hi,
Roberta?
Jason. Good to have you here. Please have a seat.
Have a seat.
Yeah.
So,
There you go.
how are you feeling tonight?
A little anxious.
Are you?
Excited. Very excited.
It's been a long run, hasn't it?
Yes.
How many debates have you had now?
I believe about 14.
Okay.
Around the area of 14, yes.
Have you had much experience debating before, or did you were cutting your chops?
None whatsoever. You know, I just recently got into public speaking because I got a lot of invitations to speak at continuation schools and colleges. So that's new to me. So from that to debates and politics, it was definitely a little intimidating at first.
Well, it's, I think we can all, both of us say, Roberta and I have done campaigning, that it's a wonderful experience, really.
Wonderful.
The people you meet,
Wonderful.
and people always run down the political life, but in a way, it's a great education.
So,
And it's very
Jason.
positive.
Yeah. So, Jason, what were some of the things that surprised you that people would share with you as you were knocking on doors and as you were at different forums?
Well, probably the most surprising thing was the unknown unknowns. You know, I got into this race thinking I knew the problems in my community, all the problems in my community. And then when you start interacting with different folks from different districts and different communities, you're becoming introduced to problems you never knew existed, and perceptions and viewpoints you never knew existed. And it's an eye-opener, because when you're introduced to those issues, you see how those relate to yours and your community, and even how you can play a part in helping those. Because sometimes you listen to someone else's problems and you think, that's simple, I can take care of that, you know? So sometimes a lot of those issues would seem a little, not simple, but easier to deal with than some of the things I was dealing with. And that's good to know sometimes. Like,
Well, you know, it's a diverse community that we
Exactly,
live in. And,
exactly.
and there's all kinds of people. What are some of the issues that were most important to you in the campaign?
public safety in the Northwest. I grew up in the Northwest area. I went to Pasadena High School, and I walked sometimes, and I rode the bus a lot. So I'm out there in the public, you know. And even nowadays, I use public transportation a lot, and I'm out there in the public. So public safety is very, very important to me, and we have to be able to feel safe in our neighborhoods and our communities.
What could we be doing, the police department and the city, to improve that?
I believe more of us can get involved into the Vision 2020 initiative, because I think that program, it explores a lot of the dynamics in our community that create community violence and gang culture and things like that, and it addresses those in a diverse way. You know, from everything from neighborhood leadership to apprenticeship programs to just violence intervention prevention.
Great.
So what were some of the questions that you heard from, say, the Downtown Pasadena Neighborhood Association that made you maybe reflect a little bit differently on what you thought you already had solved, sort of in your mind?
The issues that we dealt with in the DPNA forums were largely based around old Pasadena, and that's a vital place in our community. And it was, sometimes you forget about the people who live in that area. And I think that's what was the most informative part of that forum, is that you got to meet the people that live in that area, not just the business owners and the people you interact with. Because when we go down there, it's all business, you know, or pleasure, and that's business for somebody else.
Somebody else,
you know?
yeah.
But when you're in that forum, you get to know the residents who live on top of these businesses, you know, and you never, even when you're down there, you don't know who lives up there. So when you're at that forum, you knew, and you got to hear their complaints and hear their issues. And like I said, they relate to all of us. And I believe we all have to take accountability for all the issues that have to be dealt with in our
Well,
city.
one of the issues that we all share in Pasadena, and that Roberta and I were just talking about, is the school system. What are your thoughts about education in Pasadena and the public school system? What we can do to really get behind and support public education here?
Well, in regards to support, it's just like gaining support for anything else. You have to focus on marketing. We have to better educate the population in the community on ways they can get involved. I believe we can do a lot if we just increase parental participation, public participation, and businesses, the involvement of businesses and CEOs and folks that have experience in a lot of different fields to come in and fill the voids and the gaps that are left from, you know, low budgets and things like that. And if more of us come and spend time in the schools, whether that be public speaking, whether that just be motivational speaking, whether that be teaching them how to use the new resources that they have access to, such as our 3D printers that we have in all the schools, which is wonderful. You know, that's computer-aided drafting. There's a lot we can do with that, and a lot of directions the children can take that. But we need folks to come and fill the gaps, because teachers already have a curriculum they have to teach. So we have these new resources that we can't really dive into because teachers are already overwhelmed. So it's up to us as the community to do more for the students and for PUSD.
Yeah.
Well, talking about, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, so I know one of the questions that you've asked is, okay, so what are people going to do after this election? There's 6 people or 5 people or 3 people running for an office, and not everybody's going to win. What are some suggestions you would make for people that maybe don't get elected tonight, that they might do?
I guess the easy answer would be just keep campaigning. The things that you said you were doing while you were campaigning and the level of community involvement that you had while you were campaigning, keep doing that. You know, keep being involved, keep showing up to community meetings, keep showing up to events that involve a lot of people that live in our neighborhoods, and just stay involved with the groups and the action groups and the organizations that do good work in our community, and just continue to be accessible.
Yeah, I know you have probably a busy night, but I want to ask you one more question, which is about economic development, particularly in the Northwest. I served in the Northwest Commission for a while, and I saw the challenges that we face in the Northwest, but I think there's also a lot of opportunities and resources there.
Oh, yes.
What do you think about that, sort of bringing up the economics in the Northwest?
Well, personally, I'm a strong fan of entrepreneurship. It has gotten me from not even just like a level of poverty, but from a level of not having confidence in myself, and it allowed me to be the person I am. So I think just being an entrepreneur and teaching entrepreneurship and and just being a business owner and teaching things that are involved in business ownership and things like that and creating businesses, that can do a lot for the community economically as well as socially, you know, because it's all about making the community feel better about themselves. And as a business owner, it has kept me on top of my game. You know, I couldn't do what I do now, and I couldn't have gotten into this political arena if it wasn't for business.
Well, that's inspiring. I really thank you, Jason, for
Thank
coming
you.
by.
I'm so
and
happy to
best
be
of
here.
luck to you tonight.
Thank you. I'll need it.
Congratulations for the race run.
Thank you. I appreciate
Yeah,
that.
you really do deserve congratulations for doing this, you know?
Thank you.
I mean,
Thank you.
Win or lose.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
Well, we're coming up at 10 of 8, and we're anticipating in about 10 or 15 minutes we may start to get some results from our elections. One race that we haven't talked about too much is the District 1 race for City Council, which is District 1 is being vacated by Vice Mayor Jacque Robinson, who's running for mayor.
Yeah.
And there's a slate of candidates. We have 5 candidates in the race: Herman Acevedo, Calvin Wells, Pixie Boyden, Brian Beery, and Tyrone Hampton. What does it look like? Now, District 1 includes, what is it, part of the Northwest and part of East Pasadena?
No, not East
Central
Pasadena.
Pasadena.
It's sort of, well, it's like any of our districts that you really need to have a map up there before you have a clear sense of what's going on.
Right.
But above Washington, up to Woodbury Lake, and then over sort of the east rim of the Arroyo is where it is.
So it's a diverse community and it has a lot of challenges. So District 1 is really an important race. We always like to see a pretty good turnout. And interestingly enough, District 1, which has a large minority population, has, as I was saying to you earlier, equal turnout to the other districts in the city. So, you know, people often talk about areas that are economically challenged or that are minority areas that they don't turn out to vote. Well, that just isn't true. Well, hopefully it won't be true tonight either.
Presumption and perception are not always reality as far as that goes.
Exactly.
Well, and I think one of the things that's happened in District 1 is that you've found there's been a lot of changes that have been taking place here. It used to be the perception, and actually perhaps for the reality, it was predominantly an African American community that was up there. And now, if you were just to sort of look in demographic order, the largest group is Euro American, and then Latino, and then Asian American, and then African American. And so there have been a lot of changes that have taken place. The socioeconomics of the area have changed too. And there is the G word that's very much present and very much a part of a lot of conversations in the area.
Which means gentrification.
Gentrification, what does that mean? And how do you define what gentrification is? Depending upon how much money you may have, your level of what defines gentrification is going to vary from person to person.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And obviously there's some opposition to that in the community, but there's also some benefits that come along with
Absolutely.
it. Is that not correct?
It's a complex matter. On the one hand, you want to have more buildups taking place on Lincoln Avenue.
Right.
But on the other hand, if you get into higher end restaurants or higher end food sources, you're going to lose some of your mom and pops that are along the way. Up in Altadena, which isn't particular to Pasadena, you had the whole long discussion that was going on with the Walmart coming into Altadena and the effect of the larger organization, the larger institution on those moms and pops.
Yeah, and I guess the other thing about gentrification is that people are buying houses. I mean, that's part of it, is people are investing in the community. They're raising their families there. They're sending their kids to school. They're active in community policing and all the other things. So that's a good thing. It's great. It's great to have homeowners as well as renters in these areas.
Well, and I think a lot of people would be surprised that overall in the city of Pasadena, we have a tremendous amount of folks who rent. We think that most of the folks that live in Pasadena actually own their homes, but you can go to any of the districts of the city and you're going to find an awful lot of renters, whether it's because it's people that are going to Caltech or Fuller or are working at any of our institutions, longer term, shorter term. there they are.
Well, and we know that rents in Pasadena are not cheap. So one of the things that we've depended on for years is public housing
Right.
and subsidized housing. Unfortunately, Governor Brown, in his wisdom, decided to take away our redevelopment money so that a lot of our public housing starts and the public housing subsidies have been cut. And this has an impact. We see a larger homeless population perhaps. So providing services for people who are low income or homeless, providing housing for them is a big challenge, and it's going to be a especially big challenge for the city council person from District 1.
Yes, it will. Well, and you have the working poor. You have the people that are not on the subsidized housing, but have been working really hard for a long time, and they're being challenged because just you were mentioning rents. So it used to be that you could get a 1 or 2 bedroom apartment for about $800, and now $1,100, $1,200, $1,500 is what people are paying.
Right.
And so people aren't able to stay here. We have an awful lot of our workforce, teachers, firefighters, police officers that are not able to live in the city because the costs have risen so over the past
Well,
years.
one of the issues, and the big issue in the mayoral campaign has been the proposals for a livable wage.
Right.
And this is going on in a number of cities, including LA. There's a coalition in Pasadena that's sponsored a forum on this, and there's going to be some vigorous debate, and there are going to be some decisions that will have to be made by the city council about wage levels for some of our lowest income workers.
Yeah.
And there have been some heated disagreements among the mayoral candidates about this.
Well, and I think there's also been a good deal of heated disagreement regarding the Arroyo and regarding the 710
Right.
and all of these issues that are here. And I understand now that we're going to be throwing, as they say, which is going to be having the interview that Keri Stokstad did with our mayor, Bill Bogaard.
Terrific, our retiring mayor.
Retiring mayor.
So we are fortunate to have Mayor Bogaard with us today. Thank you, Mayor, for being here.
It's a pleasure.
So, Mayor, your service to the city of Pasadena has been remarkable. Many of us here were sad to hear your announcement last year that you are not seeking a 5th term. So perhaps maybe you could share with us a little bit about how you made that decision and why.
I'd been thinking about the question all of 2014, and I came to the summer when my family and I gathered with children and grandchildren. And I started thinking about maybe it's time to spend more time with them. So by the time Labor Day rolled around, which was my target for making a decision about my future as mayor, I came down saying, reluctantly it was, no, I'm going to go off and do other things at this point in time.
That must have been a very difficult decision.
It is, because I love being mayor, and I would love to continue if I could do lots of other things as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, when you're thinking about the other mayoral candidates, do you have any advice for them over the next several years? Do you have any pointers that you would give the new mayor coming in?
I would mention that the role of mayor is a wonderful opportunity, but it's demanding in the sense that people enjoy having the mayor be supportive of their activity and their organization and their accomplishments. That's easy for me because it seems to me that being positive with people simply encourages them to do more good things. So I hope that the new mayor will have the time available both to do the basics of serving as mayor, representing the city and helping formulate the agenda with the city manager, but also be able to attend events in the community and to say to people, this is a great city, this is a great organization, this is a great event, keep it up.
Absolutely, that's great advice for anybody coming in, probably on city council as well as the new mayor coming in.
It's true.
Over the last 16 years, you've accomplished so much, so many things that you must be very proud of. Is there anything that you feel stands out as a strong accomplishment over the last 16 years as mayor?
These have been difficult times from a financial point of view. The first few years of my service were more easy, but then the recession struck. So I'm proud of the investment that the city has made in its infrastructure and public buildings, City Hall, the Convention Center expansion, the renovation of the Rose Bowl, and all of the other park improvements and street and sidewalk improvements, the protection and the promotion of trees as an integral part of Pasadena's character. I'm proud of those physical things that have been accomplished.
Those are wonderful things to be proud of. The last 16 years, you've seen the city change considerably. Are there any issues that you still see the city is going to be facing over the next several years that you feel that you will still be a part of, helping contribute to as you move to the next steps in terms of being a community member in the city?
Well, there are two questions there. Are there still problems to work on? The answer is yes. And the second is, will I be engaged in doing that? And the first question, the first answer is yes, there are challenges. As much progress as we've made, and as much as Pasadena has come on the scene as a modern 21st century city with an opportunity for modern living and urban lifestyle, walking to work, walking to restaurants, walking to stores in our downtown area, we still have a need for affordable housing. We still have a need for jobs for those who are unemployed or underemployed. We still have a need for more health services. So there are challenges. And while I don't have any specific plans as far as community activities are concerned, I certainly, both my wife and I will be anxious to be helpful when we can in moving the city forward.
Is there anything in particular that you'll miss the most about being mayor?
I love being invited to so many activities. Some are public, the events that occur, and I've enjoyed being there and thanking people for what they do for the city. But I enjoy being part of planning sessions and project development efforts and working with my colleagues on the commissions, the Planning Commission or the Design Commission, as they face tough issues. I like to be involved and try to offer my approach that sometimes turns out to be helpful.
And
So I'm Hoyt Hillsman here with Roberta Martinez, and we're at City Hall in Pasadena in the City Council chambers. And as you can see from the shot, we are busily counting ballots. We're in the process now of counting the absentee ballots. So we're eagerly awaiting from the city clerk some of those results. I should tell you, for those of you who don't know, that the City of Pasadena is a City Council City Manager system. And this system came in really at the turn of the 20th century with the progressive era. And they decided that instead of having the political bosses and the political machine and the Tammany halls run the cities, it might be a good idea to have a professional manager, city manager, overseen by kind of a legislative body, which is what the City Council is. So the city councilors are actually low-paid employees of the city who are there to really be the board of directors for the CEO, which is the city manager. So that's a very important oversight function, as we've discovered in recent months and years, with some of the lapses in oversight, if I can say that.
I think that's putting it very gently. And I do think that it's going to be taking place that the city council, the mayor, everybody who's going to be elected, everybody who's going to be going to the runoff is going to be dealing with the issue of the $6.4 million that is alleged or was embezzled allegedly by, right? Yes, a couple of city employees. And I suspect when people go into these runoffs, that will be something that will be coming up across the city.
Absolutely, and there's been already a lot of heat. We've had the finance director and the public works director resign as a result of this. We have indictments underway for 3 people who were allegedly involved in this scandal. So it's it's a serious matter, and whoever's mayor and the new city council is going to have to dive right in and hit the ground running. There's a lot of crises there, budget issues that we have. There are a lot of things that we have to consider.
Well, and the community, I think, has been kind of waiting and on hold a little bit until the election takes place so that they can really come out in full force and have a discussion about what's going to be happening with that. With the task force now in place, there are some people, I think the first task force meeting was yesterday or the day before, and as I understand, there were at least 6 people in the audience there. And if you start to think about money and budgets and things like that, that's kind of a good starting number, a good place to go. I have a feeling that once you start to get to the end of whatever this outcome is going to be or whatever report might take place, it's going to be a lot more than 6 that are going to be in the audience.
Well, it's, it's our money. And that's why it's important, and I hope everybody who's listening to this went out and voted today, because nowhere else but in your local elections do you really have the impact on your own community and your life. I hope everybody will remember to vote. As Mayor Daley used to say, and this is just a joke, but he used to say, vote early and vote often.
Well, and I hate to break this to people, but it's too late. It's now after 8 o'clock, the polls have closed, which means now, okay, if you didn't vote twice today via that recommendation by Mayor Daley, yeah, of course.
We're only kidding.
Of course. But it's one of those things, the polls have closed, the information's coming on. One of the things that we saw as we were coming up the steps here were all of the trucks that are waiting outside that are going to begin to be receiving the many ballots that are coming in the boxes.
That's right. We have 59 precincts that are delivering ballots today, and they're coming in boxes. They're going to be counted. What we hope is that we'll have some decisions tonight, but if not, we may have a runoff. We may have the top 2 vote getters in any of these elections. If no one gets more than 50%, then the top 2 vote getters will have a runoff, which will be on April 21st. So we're delighted now to have Jacque Robinson,
Vice Mayor
Jacque Robinson, who I see offset. I think she's on her way over.
Oh, but there she is now.
Jacque has been Vice Mayor and a City Council person for many years. Welcome, Jacque.
Welcome, Jacque, yeah. Jacque, I believe, has been Vice Mayor for at least the last 2 last 2 years, isn't it?
Yes, Vice Mayor last 2 years and council member for the last 8. Time flies, right?
It does.
I think you ran for school board.
I did at the yeah. It was a long time ago. Many things have changed. What's it's the technical things that always kind of slow us down. Yes. There we go.
So welcome, Jacque. Thank you for
welcome,
joining us.
And congratulations for the run.
Thank you.
I mean, you had some hard choices that you had to make as you were deciding to run for mayor, didn't you?
I did. I had to give up my seat, but I don't make up the rules, so I had to just roll with it.
Oh, that's it.
Tell us about your thinking on that, on going for mayor.
Well, sometimes you have to run when the opportunity seems to be there, and being vice mayor and being at the time the only female, of course, that's never guaranteed. Name recognition helps as well. And I'm quite proud of the record that I've made over the last 8 years, and so I decided to make a run for it. 8 years, I think, is a very respectable amount of time to serve on the city council. So whatever tonight or in the ensuing few weeks, I'm okay with it.
So what are some of the things that you've learned about being on council over the last 8 years that you can share with us that will help prepare you to be mayor if you are elected?
Well, a ton of patience. Of course, we have very long meetings, but also just collaborating with council and being able to, I think I've earned a reputation for listening more than I speak. And I always tell everyone, if every council member had a speech every single meeting we met, we'd be there for a very long time.
You would.
So I tend to speak when there's something to be added to the conversation or a question that hasn't been asked before. And then also, trying to gauge the temperature of the other council members, because sometimes we don't have 5 votes to pass something, and sometimes it takes a lot of compromise.
I guess that's the key to public service, isn't it? To be a good listener and be able to listen to your community and listen to your colleagues.
Absolutely, and be comfortable with knowing that not everyone is going to be happy with your decision, which is always, sometimes uncomfortable, but it's part of the job.
Yeah, people I think are always reluctant to go into public service for that reason. You know, you get criticized and you get, you're the center of attention. But I think there are a lot of rewards, don't you? Haven't you found that?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. When people congratulate me in the streets or tell me they participated in a program that I started or an opportunity that has made their lives better, I think those are the things that make it worth it. And you have to just kind of push the rest of it to the back of your mind.
So I'm wondering, what are some of the things that you learned as a new council member that you might have a conversation with the person who either wins outright tonight or after the runoff?
Well, yes, I guess there will be a new council member in District
You'll have
1
a new person there
regardless.
no matter what, yes.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think, the first 4 years is a lot of listening, a lot of learning, a lot of observing. Of course, you have these grand ideas about what you want to accomplish your first term in office, but a lot of it is, figuring out where the bathrooms are, getting to know your colleagues on the city council, getting to know the city staff because you work with them a lot. And so, just being ready to get your feet wet in every aspect. And I did a lot of visiting around to different community-based organizations and individuals and a lot of one-on-one meetings my first term. So I think whoever is elected in that seat can look forward to that.
Yeah, I guess a lot of people don't realize that being a city council is not a full-time job. You have a full-time job, most city council people.
In theory, it's not full-time, but
Yeah.
Pasadena has a lot of demands and we're accustomed to a certain way of public service. And so even though it's not full-time, it very much in practice is full-time, I think, to do it well.
And not paid a great deal, I have to add.
No, I don't think any of us are doing it for the money. But,
got it.
we're going to have the Charter Reform Task Force soon, and I'm sure that in addition to a number of other campaign-related issues like campaign finance reform and term limits and how we elect mayor so that certain council seats don't necessarily have to give up their seat, all that's going to be examined.
What are some of the issues that you see that are, as you're leaving District 1, what are some of the issues that you see that are going to be remaining in District 1 that the next council person is going to have to approach and listen, go to those meetings and come to some conclusions and have conversations with their fellow council members?
I mean, absolutely economic development for the district, also, prevention and intervention of violence, and also affordable housing. But I believe all three of those are citywide issues. And even though, there's certain aspects that are pertinent to District 1, it's very much a citywide issue. And that's one of the things that I've tried to push as council members is that it should not be just on the council members from 1, 3, and 5 responsibility to, tackle those tough issues and try to form solutions.
Yeah, in terms of the big issues citywide, what do you see as some of the challenges that the next mayor will have to face?
Well, absolutely transparency and rebuilding the public trust in light of the embezzlement issue that we're dealing with right now. But then also, ongoing tackling affordable housing and, I would say overdevelopment in some places and underdevelopment in other portions of the city, and balancing that against all the many demands of the budget. Because, we had more than 10 candidate forums this cycle. And we heard of a lot of demands and a lot of hopes and wishes. And, the city can't be everything to everybody. And so how are we going to balance all those demands with the limited amount of resources that we have and be able to maintain our existing services?
I know that you've been a strong supporter of the livable wage for Pasadena. Could you talk a little bit about how you envision that might happen?
Well, absolutely. It's very much going to have to be a community conversation. We're in the very beginning stages of it. There was recently a town hall at Madison Elementary School, but by no means, even though it was a very well-attended forum, I would say there were about 200 people there. Mm-hmm. 200 out of 140,000 is very minuscule, so I think there's a lot of conversations that have yet to be had, including the business community, who, of course, is, I'll say, alarmed and has not had an opportunity to have input to the conversation. And it's a very long way from being presented from the council, I believe. But I think it's a conversation that the city is ready to have right now. And that's not to say that it will pass. It may not pass. But I think that we're ready to have those types of progressive conversations.
I wish you really the best of luck tonight, but I also know that you're young and a rising star in Pasadena politics and in the Democratic Party at statewide. I wonder how you see yourself in the next few years. I mean, if it doesn't work out for mayor, but you have a lot of other opportunities. I'm just curious about that.
Well, I've been asked that questions on the campaign trail, and I don't have a plan B. I mean, I think you have to be 100% into the current race that you're in, and so that's what I've done with this mayor's race. And you know, it's a full 4-year term, and that's what I expect to serve. And so I'm hopeful that after tonight's votes have come in, that I'll be elected mayor. So that's what I'm concentrating on.
You ready to party no matter what tonight?
I am. I have a group of supporters waiting for me at Lincoln, which is one of the new developments that's along the Lincoln corridor. So that's where we're having our election night party.
Well, we wish you the best of luck,
Thank
Jackie,
you.
And thank you so much for your contribution to the city.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, we really appreciate your coming
Oh, you're
by.
welcome. You're
That's
welcome.
great.
I know you have a long night ahead of you with so many candidates, both for school board and mayor and city council.
And city
so
council.
hopefully you
And
guys
city
can
council.
squeeze everyone in.
Well, if they're here, we'll try and squeeze them
Early
in,
bird
that's for
gets the
sure.
worm. I think we're probably going to get 2 minutes each or something.
Oh, there
like
you
that.
go. We've lucked out. You've
We
lucked
were.
out. You've lucked out.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you.
Our pleasure,
you.
Jackie. Thank you.
So we're hearing a little less buzzing in the background.
Yeah, I wonder what that means.
I don't know, but it is 8 o'clock, and I'm guessing in the next it's 8:15 now, and I'm
Yeah.
guessing in the next 5-10 minutes we might have some sort of results coming in.
Well, I hope so. As I said earlier, this is the time when they're counting the absentee ballots,
Yep.
and we understand that there are over 9,000 of them, and they're not counting them by hand. As I look through here, I see the machines working, and the city clerk, Mark Chomsky, supervising the team. So it's actually amazing how kind of efficient this process is. We came in and the room wasn't really full yet, and then all of a sudden it's buzzing.
It is buzzing. And one of the things that I found really interesting was that they all had to pledge. There was an oath that they
That's
took
right.
just as we were sitting here getting to talk to each
That's
other
right.
a little bit here. And everybody was kind of buzzing around in the back there in that
Exactly.
little door, or those double doors that go off into that area where none of us that are sitting on this side of the dais ever gets
Yeah.
to go during a meeting. And if you look, you can see the reporters that are here. You can see people that they look like they're busy. But they're mostly busy waiting at this point. I have a feeling it's going to be a little bit like a Boy Scout or Girl Scout situation, where as soon as the ballots come in and as soon as the counting begins, they'll be busy right away.
Well, you know, it's really, it is great democracy in action. When you go to the polls, you see the people working there. We have 59 precincts. You've got 4 people in each precinct at least. It's a dedicated operation. And, you know, we're really lucky to be living in Pasadena. It's great.
And it's exciting, actually, to see there's what you can't see over here, or what you may be able to see at some point or the other, is there is banks of chairs, and that's where all of the candidates and their friends and their supporters are here. And they're kind of trying to have chit-chat with the candidates so that they don't have to worry too much about the outcome, because they have no control at this point. It is done. It is over.
That's right. That's right.
For
All
tonight.
the hard work. Yeah.
For tonight.
Well, you know, I think it'd be interesting at this point to look back at the last time we had a really highly contested mayoral election, which was 1999. By my math, that's 16 years ago.
Mine too.
Bill Bogaard was running against 10 other mayoral candidates. And, you know, it's if I look at this, I see that the number of registered voters was about 70,000, which is where we are about now. And there was a turnout of about 26%, which is about what we hoped for tonight. But nobody got more than 50% of the votes, including Bill Bogaard. And the interesting thing was there were 3 candidates who got the majority of the votes. Bill Bogaard got 43%. Chris Holden, who's now our state assembly person, got 25.2%. And Anne Marie Villancana, who was running, got 24.4%. So there was about 80 votes that separated the second and third finisher. But guess what? The third finisher is out. It's the top 2. So even if it's 80 votes, that can make the difference in an election and in your community. So anybody that tells you that your vote doesn't count is crazy.
Yeah. Every vote counts, and as I'm listening to that, I'm thinking, so it's been, I believe, all the way since 1999, the last time we had a woman who was running for mayor.
Is that right?
I believe so. I believe it's been all men in between. So tonight is going to be setting some sort of record.
It's historic in that way.
It's historic that way.
And I think Jacque was probably the first vice mayor of the female vice mayor of the city. Am I wrong about that?
I'm
Maybe
not so
Margaret.
sure about that. It
Yeah,
could be. It
yeah.
could be. I'm not sure as far as that goes.
The other interesting change in the past 16 years is that the absentee ballots and the polling ballots have flipped. Before, there was about 2 to 1 people voting in the polls. Now it's looking like 2 to 1 people doing absentee ballots, which is a great thing. I mean, you know, in this country, we have a problem with turnout, and people have wrestled with this for years. There are some countries like Australia that have a 98% voting turnout, and what they do is that they have a fine if you don't vote. You got to pay $25 if you don't vote. Now, we'd never go for that as
I
Americans.
was going to say, in Americans, I cannot see that taking place.
There was also a proposal, and I think our state legislature or some state legislature, to have a lottery. So if you voted with your little card there, you get a ticket.
That's right, they
and
had
you
talked
enter
about that,
yourself,
yeah,
enter
yeah,
into a lottery, and you might win a little money.
Well,
what do you think about that?
I don't know about that, but I think one of the other things people have talked about have been about extending voting hours or having voting taking place over the weekend so that there's greater flexibility in people getting out to vote.
Yeah, and also, how come we vote on a Tuesday? It's a work day, you know?
Well,
Why can't we? So we're gonna take a little break here, and we'll be back, and hopefully we'll have some results very shortly for you.
That would be very cool.
Yeah.
Some of the people have been just bringing in their vote by mail ballots. They've already filled them out. Some people have been coming in and voting. We had a first-time voter today, which I was very excited in. And I think a lot of people are looking forward to the results of this election because it means that it's going to be some changes happening in Pasadena. And we've really been I think we've been happy with the turnout. You know, considering that it's a middle of the year, off-year election, and there are not a lot of people on the ballot.
So for me, the local elections are almost more important than any other election. That it's the local elections and the issues and the candidates that are at stake there that touch citizens more in an everyday fashion than even a federal election. And I would like to see more of my fellow Pasadenans come out to give their voice to the issues that do actually touch them every single day. Well, issues around the development in Pasadena, issues around the livability, issues around equity for every person who lives in Pasadena, issues around what's going to impact the children who are growing up in all of Pasadena. Those are the things that are most important about this election.
And the issues that I think are important, in addition to what my wife mentioned, was the sustainability issues. So our city is formulating a general plan right now and how we're going to acquire power, electrical power, over the next 20, 30 years. These are being decided right now, and the candidates vary widely in their, what they're supporting. So, yeah, elections are incredibly important.
Well, I think the most important aspect is that we need to continue what we have built over the years. And I think that choosing the right candidate is very important in this election because we have to continue the good work that has been done in the previous years. So I wanted to make sure that I get out with my little ones and that we make sure that we make our vote count.
So we're back awaiting the results, the first absentee ballots from the mayoral and the city council PUSD elections here at City Hall in Pasadena. We're coming to you live. It's a little about 8:15 on election day.
Yeah.
We just heard some voters and some poll workers talking about the turnout, talking about the tradition of voting and how important that is to all of us in Pasadena, in fact, the United States.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that Larry Wilson had a column about this.
Yeah, Larry Wilson today was writing about the fact that he takes his dog, I believe it's Charlie, with him, and he said some line about, well, dogs and firehouses, which is where his particular polling place is, make a lot of sense. And just the idea of the tradition of getting families to go out to poll, go out, having young ones get in the habit of seeing that this is what we do when it's election time and you hear all these people and you see all these commercials that are going on. it's time. There is a special day, and on that special day, you go with the kids and you get in the habit of going out to vote.
Yeah.
And that may be one of those ways that we reinforce and encourage people to get out there to vote.
I think that's right. You know, the idea of shared community, the public arena is sort of one place where we can, in an age of social media and virtual reality, that we can actually participate in our community in a physical way. And as I said, and both of us who've run for office can tell you that the great part about politics is that all the different people you meet. I loved when I was running for Congress, I would have a fundraiser at somebody's house and try to raise some money, but then I'd go out to Denny's and have pancakes with the union guys. And these are people that I wouldn't meet in my ordinary course of life. And it changes your mind. I mean, if you feel like you're getting too rigid or you're too ideological, if you just go out and knock on doors, you're going to get such a wonderful wide variety of opinions and diversities.
Well, and you see that, I think, when you're getting back to the polling place, because when you're at the polling place, you have all of the people that are there, and they cover the spectrum that's in the community, and then you have the voters that are coming in that cover the spectrum. Yeah. And just even on a personal note, my polling place, when I went this morning, there were only 32 people that had voted by 10 o'clock this morning. Mm-hmm. And when I went back shortly before we came here at 7 o'clock tonight, there's already been 140.
Great.
So that's an increase.
So I think maybe we can expect a larger turnout tonight.
I don't know.
That'd
I think
be great.
that's...
The weather's good. What excuse do you have?
That's going to be the mystery. That's going to be the mystery that's going to be solved, and we get to share with you tonight.
Well, one of those interviewed tonight was talking about the sustainability, mm-hmm. and one of the issues that's come up in Pasadena, I know, and it's been in our district. Terry Tornick is my council person, is the sustainable environment. We have a water shortage, and I think we've all been trying to, I've been trying, and I know our family has been trying to save water, also to save energy, and whatever we can do in that regard. I know Pasadena has training sessions on sustainable landscaping. So, and this is something that I see particularly from younger people, that they're very active and interested in this.
Well, I think they've had a chance to learn about what sustainability is. Mm-hmm. I think you and I grew up during a time where we didn't think. We turned the faucet, there was the water, and that was it. Yeah. And if we left the water running, it was no big deal, except somebody would yell because of the bill that would be taking place. But I think the reality is now, especially if you're looking at some of I think the southwest region, or at least in the Mount Shasta area, we're 4 years into a drought. Mm-hmm. And by some measures, we're as much as 14 years in some areas into drought.
Right.
And so it's going to be a big deal as we're looking to the future. Oh, we have another candidate.
We have another
here.
candidate
Yes.
for City Council, District 1,
District
Calvin
1.
Wells.
Yes, retired fire chief, Calvin Wells. Welcome, welcome. Please come on in.
Wells, greetings.
How you doing?
Good to see you.
Good to be seen. It's great
There you go. There you go.
It is.
Hi, Cal. I'm good. How are you?
Good. I am well.
Welcome. Good.
Well, we're delighted. We just had an interview with Vice Mayor Robinson, who is retiring from District 1. Mm-hmm. And you were running for that seat.
Absolutely.
So tell me about your campaign. How's it been going so far?
Very good. You know, kind of a grassroots approach.
Mm-hmm.
You might want to lift your
Talking to a lot of neighbors,
Yep.
doing a lot of active listening,
Mm-hmm.
hearing the concerns in the neighborhoods to identify strategies for dealing with those concerns.
What are some of the issues that you're hearing from people?
I'm hearing some common themes surrounding safety. Public safety seems to be of keen interest to people up there. Mm-hmm. In addition to that, quality services from the city. Clearly there's a perception that we don't tend to get the same level of service necessarily in our community. So that's something that people are very interested in seeing improve. Mm-hmm. Also, there's a grave concern with fiscal responsibility and stability going forward, particularly given the recent embezzlement issue that has come to light. So people are very concerned that we remain solvent as a city so that we can continue to provide good service.
Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering now, you were fire chief for how many years, and in the Pasadena Fire Department for how many years?
I was chief of department for 3 years, from 2011 through 2014.
And you were on the part of the fire department for how long? How many years?
A little over 35 years from inception, climbing the ranks up to the office of the fire chief.
And as looking at that and your experience and having to look at sort of the whole city, especially as fire chief, how has your perspective changed a little bit in looking now? You're going from sort of this larger macrocosm to a microcosm of District 1.
Well, I don't really look at it that way because I believe that as District 1, we are part of a greater city. And from my perspective, there's one district, one city, one district. So I would look to mesh our goals and objectives in the community of District 1 with that of the balance of the city. So I don't see a disconnection there whatsoever.
What would be some of those goals and objectives?
Well, like I said, public safety is on the mind of everyone. And I think that's something that's very common throughout the city. I haven't walked the other districts, but I'm sure if I did, I would hear some common themes in that regard. People are concerned about what is happening at City Hall and overall trust in their government. I mean, that's no different in District 1 than the other districts in the city. So I think there's a lot of common ground that we can come together on as a community, because the reality is this. Every Monday night, in this council chamber, as a matter of fact, there are 8 people around the horseshoe that really make up the engine of this city. They are the 8 cylinders that must be firing together to move the city forward. District 1 is just one cylinder of that engine, but we must tune it up a little bit so that the train's moving.
One of the things that Vice Mayor Robinson pointed out as a challenge for District 1 is economic development. What thoughts do you have, or what do you hear from your from constituents about that?
Well, you know, the Lincoln Corridor, as an example, there is a lot of energy that has been placed in that, largely driven by the specific plan, of course, but people are ready to see some completion of that corridor. Along with that, as with any built-out city, we have challenges. As an example, parking. I mean, it's one thing to have a nice restaurant open, but at the same time, we must have adequate parking, or ultimately the restaurant will not be accessible to the people they're trying to serve. So we have to figure out a way to make sure that we circle the wagon to make sure we have good fits. You know, not only from a zoning perspective, but from a reality and use and application of what we propose to put in along Lincoln Avenue.
What are some of the differences between being fire chief and being a candidate for public office? Is there overlap there to some degree?
The common denominator for me is public service. You know, I'm a public servant, okay? Nothing more, nothing less. And maybe that doesn't speak very highly of Calvin Wells. It's a rather lowly position.
Oh, I would say quite the opposite.
It can be, but the reality is I'm a lifetime public servant, over 3.5 decades as such, and I maintain that focus out there in that community and all that I do. That's first and foremost.
Yeah, terrific.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I see that we have yet another person who's ready to be interviewed by us, only for a different body. Okay. I see that. Thank you so much for your
time.
coming.
It's a pleasure to have you. I'll grab your mic.
Good luck. Good luck.
Thank you. We'll be in touch.
Yes.
Thanks
yes.
again. Good luck to you.
Yeah.
Lawrence
So
Torres?
we're going from City Council to Pasadena Unified School District. And Lawrence Torres is running for District 6. He's one of 2 candidates. Sandra Saraganian is the other. Welcome.
Welcome, Lawrence. How are you?
Thank you. It's good to see you. Please call me Larry.
Oh, Larry.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, good to see you
Larry.
again.
Good to see you again too. Yes, we've seen each other a lot because I've seen a couple of forums.
Yes.
And you've gone to a lot of the forums this year.
I have made every one.
Oh, you've made every one?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. So
Were you surprised to find out how many forums there were?
I was surprised about the whole endeavor, quite honestly. I've never done anything like this before, and I in college I was a political science major. I thought about going into government and that sort of thing, but you know, I wanted to be a teacher more, and so that's what I wound up doing. But going into this and the community support and the forms and the endorsement interviews and all that was beyond my imagination. I mean, it was.
How's your family doing with it? That's always the question.
Oh, everybody's happy for
candidates.
today, I'll tell you.
No matter what happens, right? That today is a point for you.
Yeah,
yes?
that's right.
Yeah,
No matter
yeah,
what
yeah.
happens.
So what do you see as being, as you were going around to all of these forums for the school district, what are some of the issues that people brought up?
I think some of the things that came up were Common Core certainly came up. Issues on school size, on just sort of the direction of the district, and are we headed in the right direction? Budgeting issues, of course, are always a big concern. Yeah. And so hopefully, as the state budget improves, school budgets will improve as well. And I feel quite optimistic about the direction of our school district and the direction of the funding that's going to follow that.
So what was the thought that got you to actually pull those papers? I mean, because for some people it's the fire in the belly, for some people it's the really push from a lot of community members to do it, but ultimately there's something that spoke to you that said, okay, do it.
I realized that I'd been preparing for this race for decades. I thought when I first started out teaching, I thought I wanted to go be a principal, actually. And so I did a lot of graduate level work in curriculum development, educational administration, because I thought that's where I saw myself. But as I got further into my career, I realized I really enjoy working with children, and so I didn't want to leave teaching. But I had been asked earlier, about 10 years ago, to run for school board, and I turned it down because my children were little. But now they're of an age where dad can be out of the house. One's in college, one's a junior in high school. Okay. So now seemed the right time.
One of the important aspects of economic development in any community is their educational system. I know that in the task force that we have in Pasadena, they've highlighted our public education as one of the keys to our future in terms of economic development. And I would imagine that's a view that you would share as well.
Yeah, I think when I was growing up, I think when in the 60s, 70s, California had the powerhouse, the best school system in the country. And I believe that led directly to the economic boom of California. And California became the engine of the country, and in large part because our schools were fabulous. And we're now something like 47th in school funding. And unfortunately, we as a community and we as a state need to really come together and take a hard look at that and say, are we doing right by our children? Are we doing right by our community? And it can be, great schools uplift everything within the community. And there's such an important aspect and a vital part of our community that we really need to work together to try to find solutions to funding issues and to making schools a place where all children can be successful.
Well, I know that success begins at the local level. So I really wish you the best of luck and good luck tonight.
Oh gosh, well thank you.
Thank you for
coming
diving into
yes.
Thank you.
Roberta, thank
you.
you.
Yes,
okay.
of course.
Take care, thank you.
Yeah. Well, and I understand that we have yet another mayoral candidate that's
Terrific.
come here. I believe Alan Shea is somewhere in the house. The house is very busy at the moment. You can see all of the different candidates and their friends chatting about this, chatting about that. Part of it, I suspect, having to do with nerves. Part
Alan
of it having
Shea,
to do
how
with
are you,
excitement.
sir?
And here's Alan Shea. Welcome. Welcome.
Thank you.
Mr. Shea, welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Exciting night in Pasadena.
Very interesting night. Hopefully history making. So that.
Well, I think it is in any case because we're choosing a new mayor for the first time in 16 years, isn't it?
Absolutely, and that will be an interesting transition for all of the voters as well as the citizens of Pasadena to get ready to embrace.
Yeah.
So.
Well, tell us about the campaign and how it's been going for you. I know I'm sure you've been out there knocking on doors and listening to the community.
Yes, I took a a script right out of, I call it my Gene Masuda book.
Okay.
Gene,
who's the city
Gene-
council
right?
person.
He's the city council, and he really gave me a sense of faith to embrace about how to campaign, and that is to really focus on a grassroots approach so that you can really get out and talk to the voters and make sure you hear their concerns.
Absolutely.
And make direct contact, and hopefully the voters will be receptive in casting their vote. And so I spent every day walking the district since November 15th.
Wow.
Including Sundays, so I haven't had any breaks off. But I really am thankful and have faith in what God has done for me, no matter what the outcome is, because I think more than anything, and as you know how I am about passion, we were fellow commissioners on Northwest Commission, that it's really about setting an example for youth to really get civically engaged, make a commitment, and really know how to organize yourself so you can stay in the race. And if you can stay in the race, then you have a chance to really have your voice heard in your community and set an example for other people. Because I didn't just run because I wanted to be the mayor. I ran because I wanted to be an example for Pasadena and all the young people who will ultimately follow this path and look back, 5, 10, 15 years from now and see that hopefully through technology and certainly all of the recordations that has been captured, we'll have a good blueprint for Pasadena's history.
And so what do you think are some of those things that that you heard from younger people that you maybe didn't hear from people who are seniors like myself? Were there different issues? Were they similar issues?
Well, really the most impressive engagement I had was actually last Wednesday. We had a youth forum and we had a roundtable discussion, and they rotated it every 5 minutes, and there was about 5 different groups of young people. And it was really amazing to me to hear that most of them, I would say 90% of them, had great, aspirations in life. I mean, professionals in college and things of that nature, which made it really nice. The thing that I always share with them is, in pursuing that, the essence is to have a plan. And if you are looking for a mayor, you want to make sure that that mayor, he or she, has a plan to embrace the youth. Because without it, they will feel excluded. And certainly the youth that was involved with this program were from the Northwest. So they, really have an extra added dynamic to understanding it. So that really gave me the greatest pleasure of this whole experience, to be honest with you, because it was the first and the youngest group of young people that were there. And then, of course, the week before that, we had PCC, the college students, and that was quite engaging. They had wonderful questions, and their reactions to one particular question was quite amusing.
What was that?
Oh, are you sure you want me to answer? Answer it on here?
Fine.
No. We actually asked. The question was that Turnick had attested to the fact that he was the chair of the finance committee for the city, and that was the first time in this whole campaign that he had finally acknowledged that, so that the voters can see that he was really involved with being the oversight for the city's finances.
So the idea that the students were doing their homework and looking into all kinds of different issues.
Well, that's why it was so beautiful, because they didn't know. They didn't know he volunteered that information. And so the moderator allowed me to form a question. So I made it inclusive of his statement and said, so as the chair of the finance committee, why don't you explain to the audience, how did you discover the embezzlement? And when they heard his response, they all laughed at him because they knew that didn't make sense. So if it didn't make sense to college students, how should it pass muster with voters? And so I thought that was pretty
interesting. You bring
interesting.
up that issue of the embezzlement, and that's something that's going to be facing the new mayor. I mean, whoever gets elected mayor, and it could be you, Alan.
All right.
We'll be facing some tough oversight issues. We'll be facing tough budget issues, the education. I mean, there are a lot of challenges. What do you see as the major issues that if you were mayor, you'd be facing?
Well, the beauty of it, and I'm glad you're here next to me once again, because, again, we've been groomed, actually, because we come out of the Northwest Commission.
Yeah.
And if I were to go through all of my processing of becoming the mayor, I would probably change the ordinance that anyone who runs for mayor in the future must be a Northwest Commissioner, because the policy development, the real grassroots of getting involved with the constituents in an area that needs that attention. So I think you gain a lot of real experience. And of course, a lot of people don't know that we are the real creators of the policies and funding and policing that is actually implemented here in Pasadena. That's right. A lot of people don't know that.
Thank you for sharing that. And we're really fortunate. We have some other candidates that are
really?
here. So
okay.
Yes.
Well, bring them on.
So there we go.
Definitely. But I'm glad you gave me
a
few moments
to it's our pleasure.
Touch bases with the viewers out there, and hopefully all the news will be good news tonight.
I suspect it will for some,
Oh.
and I suspect it won't for others, just because that's the reality.
And I'll leave by saying, if the numbers reflect that I should be in a runoff and ultimately become mayor, I think the oversight issue will be very, very enjoyable, both from the criminal oversight that we need for our police force and for the oversight that we need for the financial structure here in the city of Pasadena.
Thank you, Alan.
Right,
We're
thank you again.
About to go to yet another mayoral candidate. I believe Don Morgan is here. I don't know quite where he might be.
I see him across the room. I also see retiring Mayor Bill Bogaard. We've got, it's gotten even more crowded here in the City Hall chambers. I'm hearing a few cheers here and there, so I'm hoping that we're getting closer to be able to announce votes for you. It's coming in a little later and slower than we thought, but that's fine.
Well, I think there must
it's got to be done right.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Take the time, do it right. I think we must have at least 70 people, and there is a dog here, too.
There's a dog in the house.
Which she or he is a cutie, but every once in a while, you just got to know that dog is there. Welcome, Don.
Don, welcome to you.
Thank you.
Don Morgan.
Welcome. Good to see
Roberta
you.
Martinez.
Yes.
How nice to see you.
It is great to be here.
Well, it's coming to the possibly the end of a long journey. We'll see. We'll see if we have decisive results tonight.
Well, I know a lot of you think that, but I think there are more of us than there are of you, so I suspect you're not going to be right tonight.
Well, if I'm not right, then we're in a runoff, are we not?
If you're not right, there are going to be a lot of very worried people in this town. But there are going to be even more people excited about it. So we're pretty excited.
So it sounds like you're excited about the possibility of a runoff.
I'm excited about the probability of a runoff, absolutely, and of us being in it.
Yeah. And what do you think that you might have to do differently because it's a two-person field versus that field that you've been in over these past several months?
Well, obviously eliminating 4 candidates eliminates a lot of noise, right? So, I think it allows us to really accentuate the extreme differences between all of us as candidates, and so we like that conversation a lot.
So tell us how the genesis of your getting involved and deciding to run for mayor.
Well, I've been involved with the city, on the community side for a long time, and as I looked at the race and looked at the opportunity and talked to Mayor Bogaard and his wife, I just felt like we had a great shot to do something that no other candidate in the race could do, and we felt really good about what we could bring to the conversation, and we've been really pleased with what's happened.
That's great. Well, you've I know that there've been a lot of candidate forums. There's been a lot of
one or two, yes.
And I always think that as difficult as it is, I found that myself, and Roberta also ran for office. It's a great experience.
It's an amazing experience.
And also it sort of gives you a real sharper sense of community and the issues. Did you find that to be the case?
I would say if you want to appreciate your town, you should run for office.
Absolutely.
And I know both of you can. I've been so fortunate to see the best of Pasadena. You know, you also get to see some of the worst of it, but the best far outweighs it. And it's, you know, I appreciate our city even so much more than I did when I started, and I loved it at the beginning of the race, you know, but we have incredible people in this community working so hard for all the right reasons, and so it was a true blessing to be able to get out and meet with folks and hear the incredible stuff they're doing around town, you know.
Well, on that subject, I know that since the embezzlement issue has come up, that there's a real crisis in trust in the city, in city officials, and that's going to be, I think, one of the top priorities of the incoming mayor. What are your thoughts? How are we going to address this?
I think, Hoy, you're right. I mean, I think clearly restoring trust across the board is going to be a hugely important thing for the next mayor, and that's where, in some ways, personality matters in this race. I think someone is going to need to be very transparent. And really start from day one to suggest to the community that we're going to do things differently than we have in the past and not function quite as much in a black box, and try our best to maybe do some things to create better transparency so people feel like they can wrap their arms around what's going on and what the conversations are. I think one of the reasons we've been very fortunate in this race to pick up some pretty decent steam is that we're able to bring a lot of people into the conversation who haven't been a part of it historically. You know, this is an amazing town, and it has, you know, probably 2,000 people who are extremely dedicated and so involved in the city, but we're a bigger city than that, and I think we've worked very hard to bring a lot of other people into that conversation, and they're eager to take part in that restoration.
One of the issues is oversight, and I was saying earlier in the show that this is a city council, city manager system, which came in as part of the progressive reforms that were found in the 20th century. And the idea is that the city council is kind of the legislature or board of directors, and the city manager is the CEO. But evidently something went wrong. And I wonder if there's something in that relationship that needs to be corrected or addressed.
Yeah, I mean, clearly a lot of things went wrong, you know, and I think that our system of oversight in general did fail us. You know, there's no way around it. I mean, clearly the city council's decisions in 2010 and 11 to get rid of the internal auditing function, we got what we paid for, right? Most of the money was stolen after that fact, and the fact that they suggested, well, they got rid of it because they weren't doing as good a job as we wanted makes no sense to me. You know, I mean, I think that you restructure the job and make sure they're doing it better then, rather than get rid of them altogether. And so, you know, we have people taking credit for discovery but not taking any blame for not discovering it for 11 years, and that's problematic, right? So yeah, it's a huge issue. And again, the mayor's job is different than the council's job in that they are really the face for the conversation about what we're going to do to make it better. They don't get to make it better on their own, but I think they do need to be a spokesperson for the effort. And our hope is that bringing a different face into that conversation may help us move beyond the exact same rhetoric we've heard for so long.
You know, two of the words that come up again and again, sort of as I've been hearing what's going on at the forums and the candidates, sustainability and gentrification are two big issues that have come up. What are your thoughts on those?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think in some ways, got to look at the camera. I was looking at you guys.
It's okay.
You know, in some ways, some of the things that are going on in Northwest Pasadena in terms of some progress being made on the business side, you know, are good. And we want to build off of those successes, but we also know that comes at a bit of a cost. There are neighbors now who have higher property values and who are selling their homes and moving away, and that's part of the fabric of our community that we want to keep here, and we want them to be a part of that renewal and to be benefiting from it as opposed to just moving away from it, right? And so I think we do have to be smart about looking at other communities that are doing gentrification well. It doesn't always have to be a negative, and I know we've talked a little bit about that. There are some huge pitfalls and some huge dangers, but I think if we are smart about the conversations we're having as a community, then hopefully we are going to be making sure that the people who are most affected by movement in and out of their community also can really benefit from some of the progress as a result of it.
Well, you know, one of the things, the changes that I've seen just in being around the community is that it used to be people came to Pasadena and for craftsmen homes,
Yes.
for bungalow heaven, places like that. And one of the sorts of terms I've been hearing more and more is that people really, they would like to live in Santa Monica, but they can't afford Santa Monica, and they're moving here.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so I'm wondering how you might address helping people. Should we go back to looking at that, sort of bungalow heaven as the ideal? Do we change our perception of who Pasadena is, or
No.
do we educate those that are coming in?
Yeah, in my mind, we probably have a bit of a branding issue in some ways. I mean, this is the greatest place to live on earth. And if people want to live in Santa Monica, they should live in Santa Monica, and I would drive their car for them to get there, right? Because this isn't Santa Monica, and we should never try to be Santa Monica. I mean, we should absolutely be working as hard as we can to build on the heritage that is our community and the things that make this a special place, and ensure that anything that's coming in, anyone who's coming in here to build, should be building their best signature project in Pasadena. It should be the thing that's on the cover of their website, anything that they build here. And that should all be built in along the lines of the type of things that have made this place special for a long time.
Don, you have a varied background in education and nonprofits and business. And one of the real challenges facing Pasadena is economic development.
Yes.
What are your thoughts about what we can do to provide a secure future for our kids in Pasadena and the community?
Yeah, so much opportunity, right? I mean, I've said on the short term, we need to do better with small businesses, existing and new, and I think that this room in particular, City Hall, can do a lot better in setting a tone along with the city manager and all of our staff to be much more customer service oriented. Again, more transparent. We need clarity on exactly what the process is to start a business with better schedules and better fee structures so that people know what they're getting into. That's sort of the short term. The long term, again, we have Caltech and JPL and Arts Center in our backyard.
Right.
If we are just taking to market the amazing innovation coming out of those institutions, and we're pumping infrastructure, tech infrastructure, into an area where we can concentrate those innovation economy jobs, we're going to be doing incredible things. Those are high-skilled, high-paying jobs where people can afford to live in Pasadena and really enjoy it.
Well, actually, which comes to another point. The last question that we have time for today has to do with affordable housing.
Yeah.
Because the people that are going to Caltech, the first year's out, they're not making a lot of money. What do you think about that issue?
Yeah, and we need that talent staying here, right? So, I've said all along, I feel like we need to be a little easier on those who are providing, builders who are building mixed use or mixed income and affordable housing and workforce housing in particular. I'd like to see us working more on spreading out some of the smaller developments as opposed to the gigantic ones happening around Colorado. I think we need to deconcentrate opportunities so that there's more housing opportunity and really focus on housing for the types of people you're describing, for nurses, for firefighters, for police officers, for teachers. These are the people who are serving our community and also the people who should be living here, which would also take 60,000 cars off the road who are coming into Pasadena every day to work in jobs here. So that addresses traffic, it addresses parking, it addresses a lot of things. So we're going to make a lot of progress in the next few years, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Don, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, guys. Good luck tonight.
Tonight.
You guys have a long night. Good night.
Enjoy.
Good luck to
Take
you.
care.
Good luck to you.
So we're now going to toss it over to Keri Stokstad, who is our executive director at KPAS, and will be interviewing outgoing Mayor Bill Bogaard.
That's right.
What are your plans moving forward in terms of the next step for the fun things that you'll do as a part of being retired?
Short term, I have some travel plans. I have mentioned in other conversations that Claire and I are going to Prague at the end of March to see a granddaughter who's in school there, an exchange student from her home base, which is in Madrid. And I plan to do other travels as well. I'm hoping to spend some time in the month of May in Paris, which is my favorite city, and to bone up on my French.
Ah, there you go. That sounds like wonderful plans. Wonderful plans.
Long term, I don't have a plan. I don't intend to form a new company and get rich or to reestablish a law practice. So I'm going to see how things go after a period of time, but first is to have some fun.
So I understand that there's going to be a celebration in April for you. I understand that you'd like it to be low-key, but tell us a little bit about what you know about that celebration and any of the other events surrounding that. I think, as far as I'm concerned, we should be having the entire month of April being in your honor, but I understand you'd like to keep it a little low-key.
Well, some friends, including people at City Hall, have been kind enough to conceive of a Sunday afternoon on the steps of City Hall, which will be an open invitation to anyone in the community who wants to come and shake hands with the mayor. I know that my plan is to be there and to thank people for all that they mean to the city and the extent to which they've supported me in my efforts to build a greater city. I like the idea of having it available without cost to anyone who wants to come, and I think it will be fun.
Sounds like a great event. So we've been fortunate enough to be able to cover all of the government access meetings through KPAS. How are you going to spend your Monday nights now that you have them free and available to you?
Well, I'm not planning ahead that precisely, but first of all, I know that I can watch the meetings as they take place. But more important, at 10 o'clock the next morning and from then on for all of history, I can look at the meetings as much as I'd like. So I certainly will use the wonderful on-call inventory of agendas and meetings that are available through KPAS.
We really appreciate your time with us. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Keri, for asking me.
So we're here anxiously awaiting results from the mayoral and city council district elections. We're going to at any moment be going to the city clerk, who's going to announce some of the initial results. But in the meantime, we're very lucky to have with us Jeff Baum, who's the president of the West Pasadena Residents Association, but also a former board member of PCC, Board of Trustees, and the president of the State Board of Community
Colleges. Yes.
So welcome, Jeff. What do you think about all this excitement?
Well, it's a great night. I'm really proud of all the candidates that came out. They grappled with many of the important issues facing the state. And you mentioned my education background. In many of the I see that we're
there we go.
Oh, we get to interrupt. We're going to head over to the city clerk and get some results, and we'll come back to you, Jeff.
Numbers.
Sounds good.
Patience.
Test. Okay. First of all, welcome to the City of Pasadena, Pasadena Unified School District primary nominating election night. I will announce the election results for the vote by mail ballots received prior to Election Day. For the office of mayor, Alan Shea, 356 votes cast, 4.8%. Don Morgan, 1,067 votes cast, 14.6%. Terry Tornick, 2,881 votes cast, 39.4%. Bill Thompson, 975 votes cast, 13.3%. Jacque Robinson, 1,984 votes cast, 27.2%. And Jason Hardin, 31 votes cast, 0.4%. For City Council District 1, Germán Acevedo, 39 ballots cast, 4.2%. Calvin E. Wells, 245 ballots cast, 26.6%. Pixie Boyden, 103 ballots cast, 11.2%. Brian Berry, 131 votes, 14.2%. Tyrone Hampton, 401 votes, 43.6%. City Council District 2, Margaret McAustin, running unopposed, received 594 votes for 100%. City Council District 4, Jean Masuda, received 1,014 votes, 100%. City Council District 6, Steve Madison, received 1,199 votes, 100%. Board of Education, PUSD Board of Education District 2, Evan Dagger, 236 votes, 16.8%. Roy Bogaard, 944 votes, 67.3%. Marcela Rojas, 222 votes, 15.8%. Board of Education District 4, Cheryl Turner, 364 votes, 46.6%. Patrick Cahalan, 416 votes, 53.3%. Board of Education District 6, Sandra Saraganian, 780 votes, 49.2%. Lawrence Torres, 805 votes, 50.7%. The total ballots cast for vote by mail ballots received before Election Day was 9,355. Thank you.
Well, we're back, and we have some results.
We do.
Actually, I think some people may be a little bit surprised with some of the results.
This is the count from the absentee ballots, which was over 9,000 absentee ballots. So this is preliminary, but we do have some early indications. So, Roberta, if you want to...
We have District 1, we have Germán Acevedo that has 4.2%, Calvin Wells, who is coming in with 26.6%, Pixie Boyden with 11.2%, and Brian Beery with 14.2%, and the fellow who has the most at this time is Tyrone Hampton with 43.6%.
And that's about 1,000 votes for that district seat. So there's more to come. So we'll see how it shapes up.
Yeah,
and we also have some interesting results in the mayoral.
Yeah, we do. But you know what? Let me go over District 2. We have 100% for Districts 2, 4, and 6. But I think the numbers are kind of interesting. Margaret McAustin has 594 votes. Jean Masuda has 1,014, and Steve Madison has 1,199. So I think it's kind of interesting, and it would be interesting to have conversations with them to figure out why there is a greater turnout in one of these unopposed races versus any of the other three, or the other two.
Of course, again, these are the absentee ballots, but we can assume that those candidates have been reelected.
Yes. On the other hand,
in our mayoral race, it's shaping up.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I'm going to, just because we have the numbers there, I'm going to go with Pasadena Unified School District 2.
Right.
Evan Dagger, who interestingly enough dropped out of the race, has 236 votes. And I'm going to have to come back to that, and I guess you could talk about the mayoral race now.
Well, the mayoral race is also real interesting. We had interviewed a couple of candidates earlier tonight: Alan Shea, Don Morgan, Jacque Robinson, and Jason Hardin. And from the absentee count, it's looking like we're headed possibly for a runoff. Let me run down the count for you.
Okay.
Alan Shea has 356 votes, about a little less than 5%. Now they've shifted us off again. Terry Tornak, according to my numbers, has 2,881 votes, slightly more than 39%. Don Morgan has 1,067 votes, a little under 15%.
14.6, yeah.
Jacque Robinson I have at 1,984 votes, or about over 27%. And then Mr. Hardin at 31 votes, a little less than 1%.
Yeah.
So,
and Mr. Thompson at 13%.
And Mr. Thompson, I forgot, 975 votes at 13%. So right now the leading candidates for the runoff would be Jacque Robinson and Terry Tornak, both incumbent or outgoing, in Jackie's case, city council persons. So we'll see. If no one gets more than 50%, we have a runoff scheduled for April 21st. So let me turn to.
If I might, I'm going to vamp for just, here we go, because we have District 2, Roy Bogaard.
This is for the PUSD.
The PUSD District 2. He has 67.3% in absentee. Marcela Rojas has 15.8%. For District 4, we have Cheryl Turner with 46.6%, Patrick Cahalan with 53.3%, Sandra Saraganian, District 6 now, with 49.2%, and Larry Torres, told us to call him Larry, at 50.7%.
And look at that race. That's
a tight one. That's going to be a tight one.
It's just a handful of votes.
Yeah.
So if anybody says your vote doesn't matter, they're wrong. So we're glad to welcome back Jeff Baum, who's the president of the West Pasadena Residents Association, also a former trustee at PCC and president of the State Community College Board. So what do you think? From what you've seen so
With all
far?
this.
Well, it's amazing. It's going to be an interesting night for a couple of the races, and the mayoral candidates clearly are have yet to be determined. I think we're headed to a runoff there. Whether right now it looks like Terry Tornick and Jacque Robinson are poised to be in the runoff, but we'll see if Bill Thompson and Don Morgan got a good turnout on election day to see if they can come in and overtake one of the other two. The school board race is going to be a nail biter, I think, till the very end, that District 6. But and Roberta mentioned that the turnout, even in the uncontested races, and Steve Madison had a much higher voter turnout. I live in District 6, and that's a passionate community who turns out very actively in races, and you'll find a number of the residents will vote in every race, no matter what. And it's good to see such active participation as we had at our mayoral candidates forum in January.
So what are some of in West Pasadena, I know that the Rose Bowl and the 710 are big issues. What are some of the real community issues that you all are thinking about?
Well, a bombshell was dropped on the neighborhood and the city, I think, on Friday when they released the report for the plans for the 710.
Yes.
And the state is clearly advocating for a tunnel to be driven and built bored right through West Pasadena. And that's an overriding issue of great concern to the people in West Pasadena. The Rose Bowl, we're working constructively with the Rose Bowl management and our sister associations in Linda Vista and East Arroyo to make sure that the use of the Rose Bowl is done and consistent with preserving the quality of life for people in West Pasadena. The entire Arroyo, preservation of the Arroyo is very important. That we keep and maintain the natural beauty of the Arroyo, not just for Pasadena. It's really the Central Park that serves not only all of Pasadena, but the entire region as well. You go down to the Arroyo any day or even evening, and you'll see people from all around still hanging on to this last bit of natural beauty left in Southern California.
Yeah, I want to talk about PCC a little bit, but before I get to that, I want to stress the importance of the resident associations in our community life. We have different community associations, and it's a great way for people to participate on a really grassroots level in what's going on in their neighborhoods. Talk about it.
Yeah, we're very fortunate. Our neighborhood association's been in existence for more than 50 years. A former president is now the mayor of Pasadena. Bill Bogaard was president of the West Pasadena Residents Association, and it's an important way for the city, for residents to be able to interact and have their voices. I tell the neighbors that come to our board meetings that we're here to amplify their voices and get the message across to our elected officials and our other city leaders, and that we could work collectively, not only when we're worried about a threat to the quality of life in the neighborhood, but also when we want to band together to be proactive and support the neighborhood and other aspects of Pasadena. For example, we're very concerned about the plans to close San Rafael Elementary School, and it's so critical that the city maintain its focus on public education and that we keep a public school in West Pasadena. If we lose that, it will disconnect the entire important part of the city from our public education system.
Well, that's an interesting point. I think one of the things that people that are living in Northwest would say as a counter or a balance to that is, well, you've closed a lot of schools in Northwest Pasadena, and a lot of those kids are either being bused or going by car to other parts of the city. How are the newly elected school board members going to deal with that, do you think? What should they be thinking about?
Well, I think it is a good thing that Pasadena is an open enrollment city, that students can, from no matter where they live, apply to go to school anywhere in the city. But it is important. I know there's been a number of schools closed in Northwest Pasadena, but if you lose San Rafael, you will have no public schools left in West Pasadena. And this is at a time where the school district is on a roll, it's getting better, and so many signs of hope and improvement. The enrollment at San Rafael, which was very low not too long ago, is bursting at the seams with these dual enrollment programs. So it's important for the city to find a way to preserve access to public education in West Pasadena.
You know, in other cities, they have sort of a council of councils. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that seems to exist here is that we have these, some of them very powerful, very strong associations, but We don't have a council of councils here. Do you think that would be something that would be feasible looking to the future?
I think it's helpful. Pasadena has this amazing heritage and tradition of neighborhood involvement in the decision-making process. Communities from the Northwest, from the Northeast to Bungalow Heaven, to Madison Heights, to West Pasadena, to Linda Vista, all feel very deeply invested in this process. And as long as we can preserve that tradition, there have been times where it's been threatened, not only in this council chambers, but elsewhere. We need to continue to preserve that heritage. I don't know if we need a council of councils, but I know that we want to continue to be a vibrant association, and then also serve as a model for other parts of the city to engage and mobilize their own voices in their parts of the other parts of the town.
I also want to turn to Pasadena City College, where you were on the Board of Trustees for a number of years. They've been through a difficult period. Their president has left. There have been a couple of unfortunate incidences and disruptions in regular academic life. Where are we headed with PCC, and how's it looking? We're looking for a new president, I know.
Pasadena City College is, despite some of the headlines that you mentioned, is still one of the strongest colleges in the state. I'm president of the state system for community colleges, and we look statewide to PCC for leadership and transfer, in workforce training. And one of the things that, another statistic that just came out, more students, PCC is issuing more degrees than almost any other college in the state of California, transferring more students than almost any college in the state of California. So while there's been some leadership changes, and we have a great interim president in place in Bob Miller right now, I think that the future is continuing to be a great future for PCC.
One of the things on a national level that we've been talking about, and President Obama has talked about it, is the importance of community colleges for job creation, and he's actually proposed free tuition for community colleges. What's the feeling in California on that proposal?
Well, anything that we can do to encourage and support students to seek education past high school is a good thing. So I was in Washington a few weeks ago advocating for California community colleges, talking to the Department of Education about President Obama's proposal. California has the lowest fees in any state in the nation, and more than half our students already get a free full-ride scholarship. We're supportive of the effort, but we also want to find other ways to expand access to community college and get more kids going from high school to college. And that's so we are grateful for the recognition that the president and the state and local officials have seen that community colleges are going to be central to the vitality of the state economy in California, and we're going to provide a good return on that investment.
Well, Jeff, I want to thank you. Thank you for the contribution you've made to the community and on a state level and to the education community. So thanks so much for joining us for tonight.
It's been an honor and a pleasure. And I do want to, again, give a shout out to all the candidates. To put yourself forward and run for office is not an easy thing. And no matter what the results are, they contributed a lot to the future of this city.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Jeff.
Fight on.
Take care. Fight on, that's right.
There you go, there we go.
So we're eagerly awaiting more results. Just to recap a little bit, we've got the absentee ballots in, and currently we have results from the mayoral races and also the PUSD and city council races. We're also honored to be joined by City Manager Michael Beck. How are you? Good to see you.
Good to see you. Good to see you.
Big night for Pasadena.
It's a great night for Pasadena. We've got great candidates running, and no matter what the outcome is, it's always good for the community, and it's wonderful to see so many people come out and want to be part of the democratic process and engage the elective process and the policy development, which is exciting to see.
That's great. Could you say a word or two about retiring Mayor Bogaard, who's going to be replaced at least in the next, either tonight or in the runoff?
Yeah, no, I mean it's really sad to see him go. I'm very proud of his opportunity, and I'm excited for him. But personally, I'll be excited to work for, whoever the next mayor is, but nobody's going to be Bill Bogaard, and he's been just fantastic leader. And the last 6 years since I've been here have been very challenging times economically and other issues that we faced. And his steadfast leadership and support and moving the city forward and focusing on making sure that the city's moving forward in a collaborative fashion has been what's made a big difference. People ask me all the time, how are you coping in Pasadena? I say we're doing a great job because we have a great leader in the mayor, and we have a great council, and they've really worked through some very difficult financial issues. 2009, the general fund budget was $231 million. This year it's $210 million. That's a $21 million drop. And you probably couldn't identify a single program that we're not offering today that we were offering before. And in many of the cases, the programs are stronger. And that's because of the great work of the staff, but the cooperation and leadership of the city council and being able to lead those changes, which are hard to do. And it's all done through efficiencies and just additional dedication and commitment on behalf of the employees.
So as you're looking to work with the new mayor, we're likely to have a runoff, and then we'll find out actually who the new mayor will be. What are some of the skills that you're going to sort of look to see where you can work together to deal with the large issues that are out there? The embezzlement is a major one that 6.4 keeps coming up in people's minds, issues relating to sustainability, issues relating to gentrification, issues relating to the loss of the RDA. What are those things that you might be looking for?
Well, I think the key is going to be how they can actually coalesce both the council and as well as engage the community to identify what the solutions to those all challenging questions are. Those are not issues that are unique to Pasadena. Those are issues that are going to be debated on a national stage. But Pasadena tends to be, the progressive community in helping to define what the future of California, what the future of the United States is. And so the new mayor is going to have to figure out a way in which to build a coalition and build on the council to be able to move policy development forward and actually get a very diverse community to identify and come to some closure on what those policies are going to be as it relates to sustainability issues. We're going to deal very specifically on where our generation of power is going to come from. It's additional issues associated with water. And we're going to also struggle with affordable housing. There's a lot of substandard housing in the city, and so how are we going to deal with that? How are we going to continue to work on education, continue to employ and educate our young people in the community? Just so many things, so many positive things that are in the city, but there's also a lot of opportunities for us in the future.
Could you talk a little bit about the structure of our government? I mentioned earlier in the show that the city council, city manager model came in during the progressive era at the beginning of the 20th century, and that we sort of think of the city council as the legislature or the board of directors and the city manager as the chief executive. What are some of the challenges of that model as we go forward and facing these issues with new mayors and big issues?
It's actually a strong supporter of that model. It allows the electorate, the people who own the corporation, which are the voters in Pasadena, they get to vote and appoint their board of directors and their chairman of the board, which would be the mayor. And that group is responsible for hiring the CEO, which is the city manager, who's responsible for implementing the operations of the organization or a corporation. And it's a great opportunity to have the elected, the value of the elected, the democratic process, but also having a professional manager who's supposedly not influenced politically as it relates to the operations and looking for policy development and a consensus on that policy development as it relates to the city council putting that forward.
Could you also talk about, because I know on everybody's mind is what's happened with the embezzlement, and we know that the two department heads resigned as a result of it. Could you talk a little bit about that process and where we are going forward with the new mayor?
Yeah, we're in a process of continuing to learn. We're still trying to figure out exactly how Mr. Wooten was able to accomplish what he did, because we know emphatically that policies exist that would prohibit those type of activities from occurring within the city. We know that other employees in the city are being forced by the finance department to follow those policies. And in fact, when I did some of the brown bags across the city, that was really some of the frustration that was coming from the employees, is that they didn't understand how that could have occurred, because when they're processing their own purchase orders, when they're processing their own vouchers, they get the information sent back saying, you didn't follow this policy and you need to do it. And so we're trying to understand better how that could have happened, and just continue to move forward and make sure it didn't happen. Of course, we are insured up to $5 million, which is helpful. It doesn't waive away the sort of excuse for having it happen, but it is part of the protection associated with the strong sort of oversight or management of the organization to make sure that when bad things happen, the city is protected in some fashion.
Well, one of the things that we talked about a little bit earlier, but I wanted to go in a little more detail, had to do with water. And having just come from a trip up to Northern California, I can tell you I was really shocked to see how low Lake Shasta is. And I think a lot of people don't really have a perception of how bad the situation is. How are you going to get that information to people so that they understand just the gravity that is in front of us? Or do you think it's grave?
No, it is. It's a very significant issue for us because of the groundwater, the contamination associated with the groundwater issues, and then just simply the lack of water that's coming down through the state water programs or from the Colorado River. And so access to water is going to be a significant issue. One of the challenges we have as an organization, we run a water company. So we're in the business of selling units of water, and we're telling our customers to reduce the amount of purchases that they make of our water, and water is really a fixed cost operation. So when you reduce the water, the actual cost per unit of water goes up. And so we have this sort of inverse scale that is causing frustration on behalf of residents, because they're saying, I'm cutting back on my water and my water bill either isn't going down or maybe it's going up. And then you have the Prop 218 issues, which says you can only charge what it costs you to deliver water. And so there's some legal issues that may prevent the city from actually having the blocks that we have now, which is the great deterrent to the great benefit to conservation, the deterrent from using water, is the fact that the more I use, the more I pay per unit.
Yeah. Right.
And if we're not allowed to do that, then I do fear that sort of indicator to save the water by charging more for the more usage may go away, and then people aren't going to have the same incentives. And the one thing we know is they are motivated by the cost, and the more it costs, the less they're going to use.
Well, I do think we should give a shout out to the citizens of Pasadena, though, because they have been successful in conserving during this period. I think I haven't seen the statistics, but I know that in Southern California we've done a pretty good job in the last couple of months. Am I correct about that, or I know we could do better?
We have done. January was a good month because there was rain, or December was a very good month because of all the rain we had. Yeah. January they saw some usage going up. And then I think you're going to see the same in February with so little precipitation. And the good news is that that's a new trend, right? That means that people understand when it rains, they turn their sprinklers off, where in the past that may not have been the case. Right, how many times did we see either governmental entities or even private residents watering in the middle of a rainstorm? And so that's every drop of water we can save can be used. The one huge benefit that we have in water that we don't have in electricity right now is we can actually, every unit of water we don't use can be used later. And so
there have been a lot of classes that are taking place. People are getting rid of their lawns. Right. People are xeriscaping, which is a good thing. Any possibility in the future of looking at gray water, dealing with gray water? Because I don't think the city really overall is having a lot of conversations with the public about that.
We are looking at gray water. Gray water has some potential health risks associated with it, and so we're working through those issues. That is a possibility. We do the rain barrel program, and that's helpful, particularly to do some outside irrigation if you have a garden or something that works well. And then the gray water piece of the equation we're looking at, it's just we have to understand it better. We don't want to create a health risk in the process, but ultimately we're going to have to get to the point that we retain more of the water that comes from the sky and runs through our homes and otherwise, and be able to reuse that. One of the big projects that we have in the Cajamonga right now in the Upper Arroyo is actually be able to try and capture more of the rainwater as it does fall, that it doesn't simply run through the dam and then out to the ocean, but try and retain as much of it as we can in the settling basins.
Well, and the JPL is losing their east lot.
That's
So
right.
that you're going. What's going to be happening in that east lot there?
Actually, more settling basins, so that we can actually try and capture more water that comes down from the hills and allow it to go back in to the Raymond Basin, which is where we pump about 40% of our water.
So what's the timeline on that?
We're in the process of working on the EIR right now.
Okay, great.
Well, Mr. City Manager, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. It's an exciting evening tonight, kind of historic in a way, isn't it?
It is. It's hard to believe that in May, Mayor Bogaard won't be sitting in the chair,
know, we're
but
gonna
we
miss
look
him.
forward to whoever the person is to replace him.
Absolutely. Thanks again for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
So
Have
much.
a good evening.
You too.
Well,
So we're
Yeah, I know.
awaiting more results. We also have another mayoral candidate who will be joining us shortly, Councilman Terry Tornick.
Oh, excellent.
We can announce that 3 of our city council people who are unopposed have been elected. Steve Madison,
By
Gene
100%,
Masuda,
right?
By 100%. So we're honored to be joined also by another mayoral candidate, Terry Tornick. Mr. Tornick,
Hello.
welcome.
Hello. Welcome.
So how are you? Either the beginning or the end of a long journey?
Well, this is an exciting night. We're very pleased with the results. I'm delighted. We've been at this for a long time.
So you say you've been at it for what, a year and a half
So
now?
it's nice. It's nice to see the fruits of your labors. We've been communicating with voters for about a year and a half.
Well,
So-
I understand you've knocked on pretty much doors in every district in the
Oh, not
in the
pretty much.
town.
I've knocked on doors in streets I wasn't sure were there. So, it's really been a great experience. It's one thing to have people come to City Hall, to the chamber, and stand up and give testimony. But a lot of people are uncomfortable with standing up in front of a crowd or even coming down to City Hall, and they're certainly uncomfortable with a 3-minute limit, right? So to go to their homes and talk to them on their porches is a whole different environment, in their home environment. And they can level with you if they're willing to talk to you at all and interrupt the football game or whatever. And it really has impressed me in terms of the depth of understanding and the diversity of opinion that you encounter across the city. So it's been really a privilege for me. It appears that it's been reasonably effective in terms of the results tonight, but
That way, it's 39%.
so that's good. I mean, when you embark on an undertaking like this and leave home every single weekend, for 18 months, you're making an investment in the task, and so it's nice to see it rewarded this way. But really, it's been a privilege, and I've learned a lot.
Well, as you've gone knocking on doors and in the candidates' debates, what are some of the issues that kind of rise to the top that you think the next mayor will be facing? What are some of your top priorities that you're looking at?
I think that all across the city, the top issues that seem to surface are issues having to do with the city's financial strength and the programming it's able to provide, services it's able to provide. There's a lot of interest in making sure that the public schools are first rate and that we continue to make progress with regard to the PUSD. And I think probably the issue that has the least consensus across the city is development. How much is enough? How much is too much? Why is it so ugly? What about the traffic implications? What about the water hookups? I mean, there are people that feel strongly that Pasadena's development of new housing and new activity adds vitality and obviously income and diversity and is a positive thing. And there are others that would like to pull up the drawbridge and would be delighted if we never built another unit, and so I think that's the discussion that we've been going through for the last 6 years on the general plan. And as you know, but most people probably don't, the environmental impact report for that general plan is being circulated now.
Yeah.
And so people who have all these strong opinions, I would be thrilled if they would show up. It's not too late to have their voices heard in terms of how they feel about that issue, because there really is a wide range of opinion on that score.
And they extended the comment period to 120 days, wasn't it, instead of the original?
Well, no, that's the 710 EIR.
Okay, I'm sorry.
We've got two hot topics.
Yes.
Got 2 gigantic volumes on my desk. One is the EIR for the general plan.
Right.
And then the other is the 710 EIR, which just got released last week. That's the one they extended the comment period to 120 days.
Well, then you also have everything that's happening in the Arroyo. That's a huge issue for a lot of people. That's happening in the Arroyo.
Oh yeah, well, Hahamunga, you mean? And then,
Hahamunga, yes.
Yeah, look, there's no. The good thing about all this is there's no shortage of issues to talk about.
Okay, we have an update. For the office of mayor with 9 precincts reporting, Alan Shea, 387 votes, 4.6%. Don Morgan, 1,193 votes, 14.4%. Terry Tornick, 3,179 votes, 38.5%. Bill Thompson, 1,086 votes, 13.1%. Jacque Robinson, 2,371 votes, 28.7%. Jason Hardin, 36 votes, 0.4%. For Council District 1, 2 of 7 precincts reporting. Germán Acevedo, 44 votes, 3.8%. Calvin E. Wells, 268 votes, 23.4%. Pixie Boyden, 128 votes, 11.1%. Brian Berry, 186 votes, 16.2%. Tyrone Hampton, 519 votes, 45.3%. City Council District 2, we have 0 precincts of the 7 reporting. Margaret McAustin, 594 votes, 100%. City Council District 4, we have 1 precinct of the 8 reporting. Jean Masuda, 1,084 votes, 100%. City Council District 6, we have 3 precincts reporting, 3 of 7 precincts reporting. Steve Madison, 1,582 votes, 100%. Board of Education District 2, 4 precincts of the 11 reporting. Evan Dagger, 257 votes, 16.3%. Roy Bulgarjian, thank you. 1,075 votes, 68.2%. Marcela Rojas, 242 votes, 15.3%. Board of Education District 4, 2 precincts reporting of 8. Cheryl Turner, 427 votes, 48.5%. Patrick Cahalan, 452 votes, 51.4%. Board of Education District 6, 2 precincts of 10 reporting. Sandra Saraganian, 812 votes, 48.6%. Lawrence Torres, 857 votes, 51.3%. We have 15 precincts reporting so far. Thank you.
So we have some more results. We're still only a few precincts reporting. I think it was 9 that we saw, so we have a total of 59 in the whole area. So we're going to be waiting for more results. But Mr. Tornick, so you have a lead at this point. The reporting is that you have 38.5%, and you're trailed by Vice Mayor Robinson with 28.7%. What's your sense here tonight? Do you think you're headed for a runoff, or?
I think it's pretty clear that we're headed for a runoff. I think that's been pretty clear to me from the start. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's just it was our assessment that with 6 candidates in the field that there was no way to, frankly, to get to 50% in round 1. So this is always. I've never had the sort of expectation that it would be over on March 10th.
Right,
It had always we always had April 21st circled on our calendars at home, so we knew what was in store for us.
So what do you think you might be doing differently when you're going to be entering into this runoff?
I don't think I'll be doing a lot differently.
Well, you have shorter time.
I think the basic approach of reaching out to the voters, listening to what they have to say, and continuing to try to convey our message in terms of what we bring to the job and what our expectations are and what we've learned about the city. That's not going to change. I'm obviously not going to be able to rewalk the whole city in 6 weeks, but there'll be some walking involved. My wife likes having me walk around. I think it's an affirmative activity for us. But I don't think there'll be a lot of change. I'm sure there'll be fewer forums to go to, which
I suspect there will. I suspect there were about 14, I understand.
I don't know. I've sort of lost count.
One of the things you brought up was development, and I know you were planning director here in Pasadena years ago, and you've been involved in development for a long time. How do you balance some of the issues that you've talked about between commercial development, economic development, housing, neighborhoods, some of the things that we value in Pasadena?
Well, that is the question, isn't it? I mean, that's one of those questions without a perfect answer. In my opinion, what you do is you make certain that you achieve some consensus, and the general plan is the vehicle for that in terms of what the target is, and then you make certain that the developers live up to the city's expectations. I think where we've gone wrong in the past is that sometimes we've been so anxious to try to accommodate development that we violated our own rules. And I participated, as you know, in a lawsuit suing the city over the IDS project that's now being completed across from the Playhouse, because I felt, along with a group of citizens, that the city had broken its own rules, and we won. I mean, the city had to go back, and the project was redesigned, and the project that we have now is a far superior project. So the objection in that instance was not to having new development on that corner and getting rid of a one-story crummy furniture store that was always going out of business. I mean, that wasn't the objection. The objection was that we had spent a lot of time sort of figuring out what our objectives were for that part of Colorado Boulevard, and as soon as the developer said we need to have more, the city said, well, okay, you can have more, you know, and I think that we've just got to do a better job, and as a subset of that, the recent turmoil that has been raised by the mansionization issue and some of these entirely inappropriate buildings that are starting to emerge in different parts of the city, first on Los Robles, south of California, and now on Glen Summer in District 6 in West Pasadena. I think people are frightened that our strongest asset, which is our neighborhoods, are being imperiled by people who are, these are spec houses that are being built. They're not people's dream houses. These are spec houses where a developer figures, if I build this monstrous thing, I can sell it for a huge price and make a lot of money. That doesn't serve the city's interest. So clearly we want people to invest and improve their property, but we can't have, what we have to understand is that the impact of that sort of thing, if it's excessive and it isn't appropriate, diminishes the value of everything around it. So the one guy makes a big score, you know, and realizes a huge profit, and all of his neighbors suffer. Well, that doesn't make any sense in terms of maintaining our neighborhoods. And so we really have to sort of figure that out and deal with it. And we have an aggressive schedule to try and deal with that, first in Lower Hastings Ranch, and then in the rest of the city, and then in the hillside condition. So we'll get after it, and that'll be resolved pretty quickly.
Let me ask you a big question, which is, you know, in the United States, trust in government is at a low, I mean, among the public. And Pasadena has always been pretty good, scored pretty high in that area. But we've had problems recently. We've had a scandal. We've had alleged embezzlement. And so I think one of the challenges for the new mayor and city council is going to be addressing this issue of trust, the public trust. What can we do as a city to restore trust in our leadership?
Well, I think those steps are already underway. I mean, there are no fewer than 3 different investigations already underway, and I think it's noteworthy that one of those so there's a professional investigator working on the inside in terms of identifying the whodunit part, the forensic part. We've already had a forensic audit that detailed how this all happened. Then we've got an investigation by a city council subcommittee that's taking a look at our practices. because it's appropriate that the elected officials should be taking a look at that. And then we have, most importantly, a citizen committee, because we have a lot of citizen expertise in this community who are taking a look at it with outsiders' eyes, people who love the city but are not part of the government. And I think those are the kinds of things that you do to restore trust on the part of the people. That's not the end of it, that's the beginning of it.
Yeah.
And my experience with this is that people are surprised and amazed that this could happen, as well they should be. But I think that if we demonstrate that we're making a real effort to get to the bottom of this and correct whatever the missteps were so they don't recur, that will go a long way toward restoring people's trust in the government. Look, there are some people that just don't like government, and you know that very well. And so this feeds right into that narrative of the government can't do anything right and the government is not to be trusted. We're not going to fix that. We're not going to win them over. But the vast majority of people, based on my conversations with thousands of people, are not in that camp. They basically want to believe in their city, and they do believe in their city. And my biggest takeaway from my big walk is that people identify with their city. They care about Pasadena. And that's not automatic in communities, Absolutely. And it's clearly not true in terms of what's happening with Washington. So I think that we start off with a reservoir of goodwill and faith in this community, and what we need to do is to restore people's confidence and make them see that their trust is not misplaced.
Well, thank you so much for being here this evening.
Good to see you. Thank you, Roberta.
And good luck. We'll see how the evening runs out.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, those numbers keep popping up. We're looking at District 1, Germán Acevedo, 3.8%, Calvin Wells, 23.7%, Pixie Boyden, 11.1%,
Yeah.
Brian Beery, 16.2%, and Tyrone Hampton at 46.3%.
Right.
And we're going to be...
Speaking of Brian
there
Beery,
you go.
he's here to join us. Brian, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Nice to see you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So we're still early in the evening. How are you feeling, and how are you feeling as you've gone through the campaign here?
Well, I feel great, and the campaign's been fabulous.
Yeah.
It's been really amazing, and I think one of the best things about campaigning is actually meeting people where they live, and so knocking on doors, talking to them about their issues. It's been an extraordinary experience. The last 4 days, I was even out today, and it was sort of the get out the vote, but you know, in traditional campaigns, they have a slew of, shall we say, campaign assistants, and so they'll go out in cars. A friend of mine is from Chicago, and he's saying, for Rahm Emanuel, they had buses or vans that would go out and take people to the polls.
Yeah.
Well, I couldn't quite manage that, but the least I could do is go knock on their door and remind them that today was March 10th and they should go out and vote.
I think that's probably the most important lesson you can learn from politics is the door knocking.
Well, and your campaign was different from a lot of campaigns that we've seen here. I mean, you very intentionally made some choices.
Yeah, I feel like money has gotten in the way of philosophy, in the way of representation, in the way of ideas, bright ideas for the community. And so I think it clouds not only the decision-making process, but also why people run. So my whole point was to run a campaign on very little money and to do it with volunteers and to do it with a little bit of elbow grease. We made our own signs. We held living room conversations. We did coffees. We walked the street. We had 32 volunteers who walked and handed out almost 6,000 postcards. So instead of a mailing, we walked it around. So we actually did 2 mailings, but by walking.
Well, it looks like you've been fairly successful because you're now running at about 17% of the vote, and it looks like there probably will be a runoff in the District 1 race. So you're in 3rd place now, but who knows?
Yeah.
Did you expect to be in 3rd place tonight, or did you think that holding on to kind of those philosophical choices you were making would just automatically have longer term effects, but not necessarily the outcome that might happen tonight?
No, what I saw in the campaign is a lot of people believe in the conversation I'm raising. So a lot of people are tired of politics as usual. A lot of people are tired of moneyed interest in politics. And so I struck a chord with them. And my only concern was, would I be able to talk to enough of them to inspire them to vote? Right. But I know it's out there. I know that many people are just fatigued. They're weary of, seeing, like, in November, during the campaign, they raised over $3 billion. So one of my other points was we could be using that money for better purposes. So we have nonprofits in this town that have been struggling. That money could go to them instead of to candidates. So I think campaign finance reform is really important.
One of the issues in District 1 I know is, and throughout the city, is gentrification and development.
Yeah.
So what are your views about that for the district?
Well, it's really, really frustrating. So I saw gentrification kind of launch in Pasadena around 2001. There was a burnout house on Raymond. A developer came in, or a real estate agent. He fixed it up and sold it for 3 times as much as he paid for it. From that moment on, he looked for bargains that he could flip. And he single-handedly, and then the people who followed him, kicked off this whole movement of gentrification. So I'm very, very sensitive to it. And I think that our city really needs to think about maintaining affordable housing opportunities. Of course, maintaining quality of housing, but also trying to make sure that we have a diverse community so that people aren't either feel like they're forced out or that they can't afford to stay here because they can't earn enough. So it's a crucial issue.
Is there a way to promote economic development, but at the same time avoiding some of these issues? What are your
thoughts? This is a great question. At Perry's Joint a couple of weeks ago, there was a dialogue. I would say it was a community forum on gentrification.
Yeah.
So after that, in some follow-up, we came up with some good strategies. So one of them is to assist local people to be able to start businesses. So one of the things with gentrification is that it's money from the outside. So money from West LA or money from Beverly Hills that comes in, finances, and then builds a really expensive restaurant or business. But if it's homegrown, if it's local, then quite often it maintains the culture of the neighborhood, and then also the prices. And Perry's Joint is a great example of that. So one of the goals was if we could help 5 neighbors on Montana and Glen, Tulin Place, Newport, to open businesses on Lincoln, then local people, then they would be able to not only keep the culture, but to keep the prices reasonable and to make it look better. So part of that is training. PCC provides training in entrepreneurship, and then part of that is access to capital. And so there needs to be a mechanism in there for the city to be allowing people to, or even the federal government, for small business loans that are at a low interest rate. So yes, there's a lot we can do.
Well, I think you're really in tune with Innovate Pasadena.
Yeah.
Brian, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity.
My pleasure.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Roberta.
So we're going to take a little break as we await the results here, and we'll be back shortly and hopefully have some more voting returns to report to you.
See you later. Well, we're back. Pasadena Votes 2015, Roberta Martinez and Hoyt Hilsman.
And we've gotten some results. We're, as you've been seeing scrolling through your screen, we have results from the mayoral and the district city council races, and also the PUSD races. What we're looking at is the results from the absentee ballots and a small portion of the precincts. There's about 59 precincts that are going to be reporting in tonight, and we're still waiting for about 40 of those. So the evening's a little longer than we'd anticipated, but it's an exciting and historic evening.
It is.
And we're delighted to have the city attorney of Pasadena with us, Michelle.
Thank
welcome,
you so much.
welcome.
Thank you.
This is quite something. It's, for one thing, it's the changing of the guard from Mayor Bill Bogaard. After 16 years in office, he's going to be retiring and replaced. Eventually.
Yes.
And maybe you could talk a little bit about your service with Bill and what he's meant to you and the community as mayor.
Certainly. I started as city attorney in 1997. So that was 2 years before he became the first citywide elected mayor.
Yeah.
And in the ensuing 16 years, I've developed a very good working relationship with the mayor. As we all know, he's quite the gentleman. He's very forward-thinking and collaborative in his dealings and very astute and sharp with respect to presentation of issues and how to deal with a wide range of issues. So I have certainly enjoyed working with him. He is the gentleman's gentleman.
Yeah.
And he's just been a model mayor, and I hope that as we continue forward with the newly elected mayor, that we'll continue with a sense of high-level leadership in Pasadena.
Well, now your job as city attorney is a very diverse one, I imagine. You have an interesting legal practice because you're handling all sorts of issues that come up, and some of them come up at the drop of a hat, don't they?
They could. They certainly could, and they have.
So talk about the job a little bit and what it entails and what you do for the city.
I am the city attorney and the city prosecutor. There are 4 positions that are directly appointed to the city council, and the city attorney and the city prosecutor are combined in me for the past, 15 years approximately. And in that role, I advise the city council, all of the city departments and officials and boards of the operating companies and all of the advisory bodies and commissions of the city, along with my staff. I don't do all of that all by myself. I have a staff of attorneys and support staff, and they've done a fine job in representing the city in all litigation. We handle most of the litigation in-house, and we do use some outside counsel for some matters, but we handle most of the litigation. We negotiate contracts, we draft ordinances and resolutions, and just advise whatever issues arise in any given day. And as the prosecutor, we prosecute all misdemeanor violations that occur within the city's jurisdiction. And we also have some programs. I'm trying to push forward a domestic violence program or domestic violence prevention program in education. We're going to roll that out shortly. And we have been working with the school district on truancy reduction, and that's something that I implemented several years ago, and it's taken on a new approach right now as we work with the police department, the school district, the student attendance review board, and the school district sweeps, and work with the parents to ensure that our students are actually in school and learning. And we have a few other programs, and of course we handle the day-to-day prosecutions with with drunk driving, with theft, etc. And then we also have a community prosecution program, which we are vamping up as well, so as we deal with quality of life issues in the city of Pasadena, both in residential and commercial areas and our neighborhoods.
So I wanted to touch briefly on the domestic violence prevention program. Is there a lot of support for that on the council? Is that something that's going to be coming before the council sometime soon? What's the status?
It doesn't necessarily have to come before the the council. I have informed the city council of my plan to roll out a domestic violence prevention and education program. We're working closely with the police department. We're coming up with a brochure where we will deal with and list services that are available to victims of domestic violence, education services. We're working with the police department to come up with that brochure. And as various nonprofits have had to cut back and reduce some of their services that might have assisted victims, we're trying to come up with other ways to get perhaps additional funding, to provide additional resources. And when we roll that out, we're going to let the prospective suspects of domestic violence and the violators know that we've been there all along, and we've been prosecuting pretty aggressively. But we think there is another component of education that I think will make a significant difference to let the victims know that there are resources and remind them that the city and our community supports them.
So is this going to be something that, is this modeled after another successful program in another city, or is this something you're developing here?
We're coming up with it on our own. I'm sure we'll benefit from what has happened in other jurisdictions, and I've kind of looked around, but we're using our own approach.
I've, can't let you go without talking a little bit about a controversial issue that I've brought up with the city manager and also the candidates, which is the alleged embezzlement that occurred. And I think there's probably some confusion in the public about the role of the city attorney and the legal aspects of this and how it's coordinated. I know with his county agencies or city, I'm really actually not clear on how this is progressing and where you're at with it. Could you give us an update on that?
Certainly. With respect to the criminal aspect, since there were felony charges, the district attorney's office from the county, not our office, is the agency that's responsible for prosecuting the alleged embezzler, the former city employee, and those who are believed to have worked with him in defrauding the city and embezzling the funds. So that prosecution is taking place through the county. There are a number of charges that have been filed, and the three criminal defendants have been charged, and they are all out on bail. They had high bail amounts, but they were able to establish that the source of their bail was not through any funds gained from the city. And the district attorney's office is prosecuting those cases and keeping us informed. We have worked cooperatively because we are actually the victims, and we want to ensure that the people of the city of Pasadena and the state of California are adequately represented in that prosecution. With respect to civil aspects, the city council has established and the mayor has established a task force, and I don't know if that's been discussed at all, but the mayor appointed a community task force, and they had their first meeting on Monday, and they are looking at the city's processes and procedures and what could have been improved to prevent something like that from happening and to ensure that something like that doesn't happen again, especially at such a high level. And then the city council has...
Interrupt you
yes,
just very
I see.
briefly, Michelle, because we have some update on the voting, and we're going to toss it over.
Okay, we have another report. For the office of mayor, 22 precincts reporting of 47. Alan Shea, 432 votes, 4.3%. Don Morgan, 1,440 votes, 14.6%. Terry Tornick, 3,743 votes, 37.9%. Bill Thompson, 1,265 votes, 12.8%. Jacque Robinson, 2,933 votes, 29.7%. Jason Hardin, 42 votes, 0.4%. Council District 1, 5 of 7 reporting. Germán Acevedo, 49 votes, 3.0%. Calvin E. Wells, 416 votes, 25.7%. Pixie Boyden, 199 votes, 12.3%. Brian Beery, 237 votes, 14.6%. Tyrone Hampton, 715 votes, 44.2%. City Council District 2, 2 of 7 precincts reporting. Margaret McAustin, 667 votes, 100%. City Council District 4, 1 of 8 precincts reporting. Jean Masuda, 1,084 votes, 100%. City Council District 6, 5 of 7 precincts reporting. Steve Madison, 1,901 votes, 100%. Board of Education District 2, Evan Dagger, 271 votes, 15.9%. Roy Bogaard, 1,174 votes, 69.3%. I've been practicing too. Marcela Rojas, 249 votes, 14.6%. Board of Education District 4, 4 of 8 precincts reporting. Cheryl Turner, 484 votes, 48.9%. Patrick Cahalan, 504 votes, 51.0%. Board of Education District 6, 2 of 10 precincts reporting. Sandra Saraganian, 812 votes, 48.6%. Lawrence Torres, 857 votes, 51.3%. That is 30 of 60 total precincts reporting for the election. Thank you.
Well, there we have some more results. We're now up to about 20 precincts reporting in addition to the absentee ballots, and I'd say that it's fair to say that there's some interesting trends. It looks like we are likely headed for a runoff in the mayoral election. And at this point, it looks like it's Councilmember Terry Tornick.
We're getting tired.
We're getting tired. And
Vice Mayor Jacque Robinson.
Vice Mayor Jacque Robinson. So that would be, if that trend continues, that would be a runoff on April 21st.
It doesn't look like anybody that's in that race would go past Jacque at this point.
Yeah. The other races in District 1, we're also looking at, just to remind you, the one candidate needs to have over 50% of the votes to be elected or to avoid a runoff. And in District 1, where we have 5 candidates, we have one candidate, Mr. Hampton, who's at 44%, and we still have a lot of votes to come in. But at this point, it also is possible that race will be a runoff.
Yeah.
And then in the PUSD.
And in that runoff at this point, based on that information, would be Calvin Wells.
Calvin Wells, exactly. In the PUSD races, very interesting. We have 2 races, one in the 4th and one in the 6th district, where it's really neck and neck, a handful of votes. Really a toss-up at this point. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens with that.
Well, and thank you, Michelle, for being patient. Just one last comment, which is just thinking about this. One of the things that several of the candidates were mentioning earlier, and we talked about earlier, is the fact that there were, some said 10, some said 14 different candidate forums that they went to. But if you're looking at the PUSD outcomes, it isn't apparent. And in those races, for those 3 seats, one out of the 2 went to each of the forums. So the guys ended up going to the forums. We didn't see the women except at 1 or 2, I think. But that doesn't seem to have affected sort of the percentages of how the voting is coming out.
Oh, very interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I know that you're one of the responsibilities that you have is the training of public servants in the state, and I've been through the training. It's very interesting. We're really held, even as volunteers, we're really held to quite a high standard of ethics, and it's been worked out statewide. And I know the city attorneys are responsible in part for that high level of training. Do you want to talk a little bit about ethical standards and what we really are expecting from public servants?
Certainly. The training that we provide, the city attorney's office provides training for city officials, city elected and appointed employees, and members of boards and commissions and committees. And the state requires for certain officials to receive that training every other year. The city has determined that it's appropriate to require that training for a much broader category of people, which is why we have expanded that. And we ended up with our training to ensure that people view ethics as the floor and the legal requirements as the floor, and we shoot for higher ethical standards than the legal requirements require. So our goal is to ensure that Pasadena officials and employees are above board and highly ethical in all of their dealings.
Well, thank you so much for being here tonight, spending
Thank
time
you.
with us.
All right, my
And
pleasure.
on we go. We'll see you on Monday.
Thank you so much for what you're doing this evening.
Oh,
We really
appreciate it. Thanks for your service to
service.
the city for 18 years,
Yes,
is it now?
yes, just about,
Congratulations.
yes. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, and I see we have another candidate coming in. This mic has been busy tonight, one candidate after the other.
Mr. Hampton, is it
It
not?
is Mr. Hampton. It is Tyrone Hampton, Jr. His dad is Tyrone Hampton, Sr.
Mr. Hampton Jr., how are you, Tyrone? Good to see you.
Welcome.
Still no love, huh?
I haven't hugged anybody else tonight.
Well, I know you, so that's why
I know almost everybody else I've interviewed tonight, too.
I'm used to I'm a hugger. You know? I got a lot of love to give, you know? So
There you go.
That's what our community needs, is a lot of love.
That's true. That's true. Well, you've been doing wonderfully well this evening, haven't you?
I'm feeling good.
Yeah, you should. Your numbers look good.
I'll have you hold your mic up a little bit so we
thank
can
you.
hear you good. So you're looking good tonight. Well, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling great. I mean, you know, how much better, I guess, you know, the numbers are coming in and they're looking good, and I feel really good about it.
Well, let's repeat the numbers so we
Go ahead.
can again. You're now at 44%. Your closest competitor is at 25%. If that holds, it looks like you're still headed for a runoff. What do you think?
Well, you know, only 5%, only 5 of the precincts are in.
Yeah.
And with God, anything is possible, right? You know what I'm saying?
Got it. You got it.
So, but no matter what, I'm in no ways tired. I may have lost my voice, but I'm in no ways tired. So.
Well, tell me about the campaign. How's it been going?
It's been going really well. It looks like, you know, our community has been waiting for some energetic representation that's going to bring positive changes to Northwest Pasadena, and it looks like I happen to be that guy for right now. So I am honored to have this amount of votes and for the community actually show this type of support.
We've talked a little bit about, in fact, we've talked a lot about Northwest Pasadena tonight.
Yes, we have.
Because
Yes, we have.
there's a lot of opportunities, a lot of challenges, a lot of hope going on. Talk to me a little bit about economic development in Northwest. I know it's something that's important and it's a challenge. You know, not to go overboard in gentrification, but provide for the community and help create jobs. What are your
I think
thoughts?
it's important that our city tries to start up some sort of economic enterprise zone within Northwest Pasadena and give incentives to opening up a business in Northwest Pasadena. As a school board member, I talk to parents on a day-to-day, and some of them at 9 o'clock at night, and I always say, why do I have to talk to you at 9 o'clock at night? And they say, Tyrone, because I'm working 3 jobs just to live in this city. I think this city is one of the greatest cities I could ever be in. I've knocked on so many doors, and the great thing about knocking on doors is you're meeting people that have been here for generations and generations. Well, the last time I knocked on doors, there were a lot of faces that were very familiar to me. This time around, it looks like people are moving because they've been working 3 jobs, and you know they don't have a lot of protections from their city, and they're leaving on to other cities that have other opportunities, especially for jobs and starting up businesses. So I think it's important that we make sure that we try to support some small businesses to move into Northwest Pasadena so that they could hire interns, the people in our community. As a small business owner, what I do on a day-to-day is I hire people in our community, not only because I love my community so much, but because I know they're not going to be late. You can't say, oh, I got stuck in traffic coming down Lake Street.
Yeah.
No, you got to get to my office.
Yeah.
So I think it's important that we set up some incentives for businesses to open.
One of the issues that's come up in the campaign recently is the idea of a livable wage for workers in Pasadena, for low-income workers in Pasadena. And I know that that's something that probably will come before the city council, you know, in the next 6 months. What are your thoughts about that? What's your position on it?
I totally believe in a livable wage, but I don't think it's something that you could shove down small business owners' throats. I think it's something that, as a community together, we all need to work on to make sure what is a fair wage for small business owners so that they can hire people in our community. Because if I have to, for example, if I had to hire everyone and it was, $18 or $19 an hour, I may not hire as many people, so it's not about shoving something down small business owners' throats, because, it's still at the end of the day, we're small business owners. But it's also about, working together with small businesses before we make a decision like that. I think it's important because we need jobs in Northwest Pasadena. We don't want anyone to lose a job because now the rates are too high and a small business can't afford to pay people.
I'm wondering, so in the last 2 years, between your hitting the streets a couple of years ago, PUSD, hitting the streets now for City Council, what are some of the issues that seem to still be sort of evergreen issues that are coming up? And what issues seem to have changed maybe a little bit over the last 2 years?
Well, you know what? It seems like a lot of the issues continuously to be the same. Some of the issues are, some people feel as if they've been left behind a little bit. And maybe the reason why the votes are high is because people see my optimism, and I don't leave anybody behind. It. My community is my number one priority, and that's, I think, what they see the difference between me and some of the other candidates, or just candidates in the past, or even the present candidates. But I think one of the issues is a lot of people feel like they've been neglected for a while. A lot of people in Northwest Pasadena. Now, there's some great areas in Northwest Pasadena, some extremely nice areas in Northwest Pasadena, and I was honored to walk those streets. And but there are some areas in Northwest Pasadena where, it's not it's not so great for everyone, And
yeah, I mean, there are public safety issues that people have raised and issues like that. I know that there's been efforts in the police department and community policing and some conversations, but I think there's a lot of work to be done in that area.
There's a lot of work to be done. I've got a lot of energy. I'm ready to do that work. I'm a hard worker. Everybody that has worked with me since I've been a school board member would probably attest to that. I didn't decide to run for city council because, I just said, oh, well, I'm going to run for city council. No, I decided to run for city council because community members, parents, not my parents, a lot of people are like, your parents came to you? No. So community members, the parents I've worked with have asked me to run for city council because they know that I'm going to represent them. I think for a long time, just in our communities as a whole, we have a lot of voices, but we don't have a lot of ears. So I'm just here to represent our community, and I just want to be the representative, and I'm humbled that the votes came in tonight, and it looks very promising that I will be the representative. And I'd be proud. I know Ms. Martinez is in my district, and I'd be proud and honored to serve you as well.
There you go.
That's one of those things where we have that real clear line between who I am when I'm here working and who we are when you knock on the door. But that's actually, and that's one of those challenges that exists here in Pasadena, is that everybody knows everybody.
Yeah. That's one of the great things about Pasadena, in my opinion. But with the lack of quality jobs in our community, we're losing that. We are losing that because people are leaving. And so that's why we need quality jobs.
Well, and there are housing issues too. The cost of housing is really...
Well, if you had a quality job, maybe
there you go.
You wouldn't have a housing problem, right?
So some of the issues that are existing as far as the school and people staying here and affordable housing, how are you going to approach that, or in conversation when you're sharing that with your other council members?
Well, you're talking about some of the issues as far as education goes.
Just as education and affordable...
education is my biggest, I love it. With education, anything is possible. And I think that here in the city of Pasadena, we have more private schools per capita than any other city of its size, probably in the United States. I haven't checked those numbers, but I assume that's throughout the United States, any other city of its size in the United States, not just California. And that is kind of due to the fact that, of course, busing had a lot to do with that, but also that we never broke the cycle. And as a city council member, I will believe, because I do believe in public education. Me and my wife are examples of public education in that it works. And I've met a lot of people that are examples of public education. But as a city council member, I will work with our public education to make sure that it's better and to make sure that our city thinks highly of our public education as well.
I think it's critical.
It sounds like you'll be sending your kids to public school. It sounds
most definitely. I went there. Why not? I think I did all right. So,
Hey, it's a pleasure to have you, and congratulations.
It was a pleasure being
It's looking
here.
good
Pleasure
for you.
to be
Martinez,
here.
it's good to see you.
Good to see you
Take care,
too.
my friend.
And there we go.
So we're still awaiting some more results. We have 20 precincts in plus the absentee ballots, but we have another 30 or so to go.
We have a long ways to
So
go.
we
Nothing
have
is
an
written
evening
in
ahead of
stone
us.
yet.
But we're going to take a break now, and we'll catch up with you later.
See you on the other side.
So welcome back. We have results that we've been updating through the evening, and we're going to be moving on to the next portion of the evening. We have our major domo here, William Boyer, who's the Chief Public Information Officer and media magnate of Pasadena, and he's going to introduce himself and give us a few words about this historic evening.
Well, how can I top an introduction like that, Hoyt? I appreciate that very much, I think. But I am the Public Information Officer for the City of Pasadena, and I want to thank you guys for all of your work tonight. Roberta and Hoyt, very much appreciate everything that you've done to help inform the public and to keep us captivated during the election results tonight. I am happy to tell you that I did talk with the city clerk, Mr. Jomsky, just a few moments ago. All the ballots are here.
Oh, excellent.
All the precincts have reported their ballots. They're in the process of doing the final tallies right now. We've got approximately half of the precinct results have already been announced, plus the mail-in ballots. So we'll be still counting for probably another hour or so, maybe a little longer than that. But we've got a couple of tight races in the school district, and it does appear that we're going to be headed into some runoffs there, and probably runoffs for District 1, for City Council, and the mayor.
Yeah, and I would definitely say stay tuned for these tight PUSD races. And also, I believe that we can view this on the web at kpas.org. We're streaming live, so people can keep an eye on that on their computers, their laptops, or their phones for the updates.
Yes, we are streaming on the website, on both the city website, Pasadena, cityofpasadena.net, and pasadenamedia.org. And so the results will be there. We will be posting live, real time, on the website as well, as we've done throughout the night. So there's been a lot of people behind the scenes here to make sure that the public is kept informed about the election results, historic election results.
Exactly, and I also think that it's my understanding that this webcast, this broadcast will be archived, so that if you missed any of the interviews or our scintillating conversation, you can check back in at any time. And there's also a full lineup of programming that we do on public access and on KPAS, on the PUSD station, and all the other media opportunities in Pasadena. So it's a way to stay in touch with your community and a way for all of us to reach out and connect.
Absolutely. I think our public access and the government access stations do a great job. They provide an awful lot of information. This is, of course, one of the most important things that they do to provide election coverage and city council meeting coverage, and they do a great job.
So, Roberta, thank you very much.
We survived. We did it.
We did fine, and I think it was great to be part of this historic evening. And we'll be waking up tomorrow, I think, with a runoff in a couple of elections. So we may have to be revisiting this in the third week in April. But this is the democratic process, and it's a great city. We're blessed to live here.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Pasadena Votes 2015.
there we go. I encourage everybody, make sure when it's Pasadena Votes 2017, or actually April 21st,
April 21st.
2015. If you didn't vote this time, make sure you vote next time, because your vote, as we've heard again and again, your vote really does count. It's been a pleasure, Hoyt.
Thank you, Roberta. Pleasure.
See you another time.
Thank
you, sir.
Take care.
Thank you, Bill.
Roberta, thank you so much for all of your work tonight. It's really appreciated. And of course, the Pasadena media crew.
Yes,
I wish we could
yes,
turn the
yes.
cameras on them so that you could see them and all the work that they've been doing behind the scenes. Really done an outstanding job tonight, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's a nice shot.
Yeah, it is.
There you go.
For the office of mayor, 36 of 47 precincts reporting. Alan Shea, 468 votes, 4.1%. Don Morgan, 1,610 votes, 14.3%. Terry Tornick, 4,181 votes, 37.2%. Bill Thompson, 1,429 votes, 12.7%. Jacque Robinson, 3,479 votes, 31%. Jason Hardin, 51 votes, 0.4%. City Council District 1, 6 of 7 precincts reporting. Herman Acevedo, 53 votes, 3%. Calvin E. Wells, 444 votes, 25.1%. Pixie Boyden, 217 votes, 12.3%. Brian Berry, 256 votes, 14.5%. Tyrone Hampton, 793 votes, 44.9%. City Council District 2, 4 of 7 precincts reporting. Margaret McAustin, 861 votes, 100%. City Council District 4, Jean Masuda, 1,288 votes, 100%. City Council District 6, Steve Madison, 6 of 7 precincts reporting. 1,963 votes, 100%. Board of Education District 2, 9 of 11 precincts reporting. Evan Dagger, 332 votes, 16.5%. Roy B., 1,369 votes, 68.2%. Marcela Rojas, 305 votes, 15.2%. Board of Education District 4, 7 of 8 precincts reporting. Cheryl Turner, 619 votes, 47.5%. Patrick Cahalan, 682 votes, 52.4%. Board of Education District 6, 3 of 10 precincts reporting. Sandra Saraganian, 886 votes, 47.3%. Lawrence Torres, 985 votes, 52.6%. Thank you very much. tally of poll votes tonight. Let's see. The crowd went away. Anyways, for mayor, 47 of 47 precincts reporting. Alan Shea, 577 votes, 4.4%. Don Morgan, 1,873 votes, 14.4%. Terry Tornick, 4,814 votes, 37.1%. Bill Thompson, 1,708 votes, 13.1%. Jacque Robinson, 3,931 votes, 30.3%. Jason Hardin, 64 votes, 0.4%. City Council District 1, 7 of 7 precincts reporting. Herman Acevedo, 56 votes, 2.9%. Calvin E. Wells, 459 votes, 24.1%. Pixie Boyden, 233 votes, 12.2%. Brian Beery, 276 votes, 14.5%. Tyrone Hampton, 879 votes, 46.1%. City Council Districts 2, 7 of 7 reporting. Margaret McAustin, 1,219 votes, 100%. City Council District 4, 8 of 8 precincts reporting. Gene Masuda, 1,862 votes, 100%. City Council District 6, Steve Madison, 7 of 7 precincts reporting. 2,107 votes, 100%. Board of Education District 2, 11 of 11 precincts reporting. Evan Dagger, 379 votes, 16.4%. Roy B., 1,568 votes, 67.9%. Marcela Rojas, 360 votes, 15.6%. Cheryl Turner, Board of Education District 4, 8 of 8 precincts reporting. Cheryl Turner, 660 votes, 44.7%. Patrick Cahalan, 814 votes, 55.2%. Board of Education District 6, 10 of 10 precincts reporting. Sandra Saraganian, 1,153 votes, 42.4%. Lawrence Torres, 1,566 votes, 57.5%. We have a total of
1,295 vote by mail.
We have a total of 1,295 vote by mail ballots received at the polls.
577 provisional ballots.
577 provisional ballots received at the polls. We had another 75 vote by mail ballots received at the city clerk's office that were not tabulated tonight. And then we will be receiving vote by mail ballots for the rest of the week. If they are postmarked, they will be counted. If they are postmarked, I should say, on or before Election Day, they will be counted if the signatures are valid. So we'll have that'll be up until March 13th. So any ballots received via mail or bona fide postal delivery service, private delivery service, by March 13th with a postmark of March 10 or earlier will be counted. So we'll have a second count of all the vote by mail ballots and provisional ballots received at the polls on March 18th. And that'll be the final ballots cast and counted for the March 10 primary election. Thank you very much for being here, and have a good night.